Patient. What is mental illness? Doctor. Are you in love? Patient. Love doctor. You are mentally ill. Patient. Which textbook says it? I don't believe it. Doctor. Cold Palace Spring Day, keywords of the novel. Love in a mental hospital without pop-ups, love in a mental hospital. Download the complete set of TXT, Love in a Mental Hospital. Read the latest chapters on Love in a Mental Hospital. Chapter 1. Haicheng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Haicheng. The siren sounded, and the bus drove into the tunnel, causing slight discomfort in the ears. It's almost it, passing through the tunnel is Haicheng. Finally coming. The tunnel is still long, what's the rush? Ladies and gentlemen, please prepare your mobile phone and camera. When you exit the tunnel, it will be one of the beautiful views of Haicheng. Remember to start shooting from inside the tunnel and turn the light from dark to bright. I hope everyone's life can also become bright and brilliant because of coming to Haicheng. Gu Ran was woken up. Outside the window, it was pitch black, and the sound of sirens gradually faded away. A sedan roared past and exploded into the tunnel at a speed that absolutely exceeded the tunnel speed limit. Bang! Gu Ran imitated the subtle explosion sound and sent blessings to this sedan. He is not a good person. If there is an accident with this car, you must applaud. Doctor, you're awake. The next door uncle greeted warmly. Gu Ran's hair stood on end as he remembered why he was sleeping. People in the front, back, and adjacent seats are all looking over. Gu Ran is a psychologist, and this profession is very mysterious. Most importantly, chatting with a psychologist in daily life requires money. No one doesn't like being taken advantage of, except for the person who was taken advantage of. Not necessarily, but at this moment, Gu Ran definitely doesn't like being taken advantage of. So let's continue consulting, the uncle asked. Uncle, do you still have any questions? Gu Ran couldn't bear it anymore, and the other party even asked, if there is someone next to you, you can't pee. Small problems, just some small problems. Uncle doesn't mind at all, as if it's him who's causing trouble. That's what's going on, the uncle continued, I love women's legs. I've loved them since I was young, and I've always liked them. I probably will continue to like them in the future, always staring at women's thighs while walking on the road. Uncle, the girl next door couldn't help but say, you're just a simple thug. The uncle glared at her and then glanced at the girl's thigh. Undoubtedly, the girl's gaze, which was honed from her fondness since childhood, shrank as if frozen by the cold air. The uncle turned his head and said to Gu Ran, I have spoken so much to you, doctor. It's embarrassing. You must help me take a good look. The men around also showed a curious expression, without exception. Gu Ran said, looking at a girl's legs is a normal person, not looking at them is what makes you sick. But I'm afraid that one day I might be caught. It's abnormal not to be afraid of being caught. But I'm worried about being caught and I still have to see. To be honest with you, Gu Ran was tired, I'll take a look too. The uncle suddenly became mentally alert and said, Doctor, are you like me? Yes. Are you also psychologically abnormal? What I mean is, you are a normal person, we are all normal people, without any mental illness. Without illness, the uncle became suspicious and probed, Doctor, is it possible that we all have psychological problems, but you don't know it yourself? Gu Ran's face remained expressionless. Gu Ran felt disheartened and disheartened. Gu Ran, a young and rising star in clinical psychology, wants to commit suicide. If you're not at ease, Gu Ran regained consciousness. So, this time I'm coming to Haicheng to work. I've already been admitted to a psychological clinic, and will add a contact information. You can come to me anytime you have time. If you really have a mental illness, I'll do the surgery for you. Speaking of asking for money, Uncle immediately agreed. Since you've said that, doctor, I shouldn't have any problem, so I won't go to the hospital. Doctor, let's add a WeChat account. The girl next door who had her leg examined leaned over. The girl next to her also had a face full of eagerness to try. Are you adding a doctor's WeChat? A male judge exclaimed loudly, you're trying to make friends with handsome guys just because you're interested in sex. Surrounded by laughter. The girl felt embarrassed and her face turned red. Gu Ran finally emerged from the crisis of suicide. Taking out his phone at 10:52, he arrived at Haicheng just in time for lunch. While he was calculating what to eat, the bus pulled out of the tunnel. Wow, the car exclaimed in surprise. The light changes from dark to bright, and the azure sky and boundless sea, nestled among coconut and palm trees, create a modern city that unfolds like a painting in the eyes of passengers. Seagulls are flying in the sky, occasionally seeing planes rising from the ground or diving down. Gu Ran was also mesmerized by it. After regaining consciousness, the bus had already entered the station, and everyone rushed down in unison, as if there were bombs on board. The uncle next to Gu Ran was even more fierce than Lu Bu. With his arms propped up and his shoulders pressed against the flow of people in the hallway. Gu Ran was not in a hurry to get off the car. Seeing how brave the uncle was, he followed closely behind and took the opportunity to forcefully squeeze in. After getting off the bus, the air became fresh and he came to the side of the bus, ready to pick up his luggage. There are many people gathered here, including young boys and girls, as well as grandparents, parents, sons, and daughters, most of whom come for tourism. A middle-aged man was picking up his luggage while loudly saying, "It's not easy to buy summer tickets. The bus is exhausting, so make sure to take a plane when you go back." Another woman complained, "Some air tickets are cheaper than motor tickets, how could we possibly get them? I said the price should be set higher." Gu Ran saw his black box in the belly of the bus, and with quick eyes and hands, he took down the box that was blocking his own box, as well as his own box. "Whose is this?" He turned around to look. "Thank you." The girl speaking, behind his buttocks, looked nervous. "Are you worried about him grabbing luggage?" "I may have looked up to him. He doesn't have the ability to run past the police with 2 suitcases, and even if he wants to grab a bus, the bus driver is also nearby, so there's no need to worry about having no keys." Gu Ran handed the pink suitcase to the girl. The girl said thank you again, then took out her phone and said, "Is it convenient to add WeChat?" "Add WeChat to the back." Someone shouted in the crowd. "Handsome guy, help me also get a piece of luggage, just the yellow one. Help me also take it." Gu Ran bent down again, picked up the yellow suitcase, and quickly left the crowd. After giving the suitcase to the person, he quickly disappeared. The air conditioning brought down from the bus has been exhausted, and sweat is starting to sweat on the forehead. But fortunately, Haicheng is truly the most livable tourist city in the country, with temperatures reaching 21 degrees Celsius during the coldest hours and only 28 degrees Celsius during the hottest summer vacation. Compared to inland areas where temperatures can be as high as 32 degrees Celsius, it is not a big deal. Gu Ran found a cool place, took out his phone, and first reported safety to his family before opening a WeChat account. Of course it is. "Hello," Gu Ran grabbed the suitcase that was almost knocked down by passers-by, and the other hand holding the phone followed suit with force. "Of course it is. I am Gu Ran, I have already arrived at the bus transportation center. May I ask where you are?" "Qing. Starbucks, come over." Starbucks, so big, Gu Ran has never been to Starbucks before. He felt uplifted not because he was going to Starbucks, but because he was looking forward to a new life. Will it be like entering Starbucks for the first time, encountering many new things? Gu Ran pulled his suitcase and walked along the huge wall of the passenger transportation center. Along the way, there were shops, specialty stores, various fast food restaurants, KFC, and so on. Starbucks is located in the distance, adjacent to McDonald's. Along the way, Gu Ran observed the city and found that the girls were dressed as beautifully as if taking wedding photos. Those with long legs must show their legs, those with thin waist must show their waist, and clothes with good figures must fit well. This city is so beautiful. He sighed sincerely and used his phone to take pictures of planes taking off in the sky. Gu Ran even stopped and looked carefully for a while. He had never seen such a large airplane before. In the past, airplanes were either small dots during the day or warning lights flashing at night. He waited for the plane to leave before continuing to Starbucks. I kept taking pictures with my phone all the way. Dad, Mom, come on, there's such a blue sky. He posted a short video on Family. When passing by McDonald's, he was ready to put away his phone and go to meet the pick-up person sent by the clinic. But at that moment, a scene inside McDonald's caught his attention. A beautiful woman with an excellent figure is taking selfies, wearing a McDonald's packaging bag on her head. Gu Ran couldn't help but use his prepared phone to capture this scene. Is this the reason why my man endures forever? He widened his horizons. The beauty inside the glass wall turned around and met Gu Ran through the wall, her delicate and fair face indifferent and heartless. Gu Ran pretended to look for direction in front of the navigation, grabbed his phone, and turned in place for half a circle before continuing forward. When passing by Starbucks, quickly dodge in. The cold air suddenly enveloped him, and the originally sticky clothes seemed to dry out instantly, becoming refreshing. Looking around, there were not many people in the store, only a small portion of the seats were taken, but because everyone tried to sit as close as possible, there were not many seats that were satisfactory. He has no intention of sitting down, waiting to be claimed. All the women in the store looked at him, but no one came to claim him. Gu Ran took out his phone and clicked on Qing's WeChat again. Of course it is. I arrived, wearing a white T-dot shirt and pulling a black suitcase. Qing. Wait. I don't know how long to wait. Just as Gu Ran was planning to find a seat to sit down first, someone came to claim him. Hello. Gu Ran turned around and looked at the person in front of him. His body and mind, which had just cooled down, became hot and dry again, as if it was only then that he had truly arrived at the beautiful seaside city. Haicheng. The girl smiled and said, I'm Su Qing. It's our first time meeting, so please take care of me from now on. Gu Ran glanced at her smooth long hair and instinctively said, didn't you just be at McDonald's? Why did you ask me to wait at Starbucks? Do you have it? You're taking a photo wearing a McDonald's bag, Gu Ran reminded the other person. The smile on Su Qing's delicate little face deepened, but in contrast, the smile disappeared. Like a beautiful and evil witch, ready to use the most vicious torture. Very good. Her voice was crisp and sharp. I didn't want to worry about your secret filming, but since you declared war on me, I can only counterattack. Declaration of war. Private diary. On August 1st, sunny, take a 6-hour bus to Haicheng. Haicheng is very beautiful. The new book set sail, do your best. End of this chapter. Chapter 2 says. Thank you, Sister Qing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 says. Thank you, Sister Qing. Gu Ran couldn't understand. Su Qing didn't explain and instead asked, have you eaten yet? No, but then let's go. Su Qing turned around and walked outside. Let's go, it's really going, not going to Shaw County Snacks, not KFC, and not going back to McDonald's. The two of them arrived at the parking lot. Su Qing is driving a blue BMW, and it is unclear what specific model it is. He does not have a need for information in this regard. She opened the trunk, which contained miscellaneous items such as slippers, running shoes, mineral water, etc. Gu Ran stuffed his suitcase in. Although it was very large, the posture of its placement seemed cramped, not as imposing as those sandals. Su Qing glanced at it and didn't say much. She closed the trunk and went straight back to the driver's seat. Gu Ran followed over, wanting to sit in the passenger seat, but as soon as the car door opened, he saw a pile of miscellaneous items, including jackets, file bags, books, and shopping bags. No one has been sitting in the passenger seat for a long time, and the cost of cleaning up the clutter in front of you is like a small move. Sit in the back seat. Su Qing, wearing sunglasses, glanced over. Her face is white and delicate, and her sunglasses are large, making her look unique. Okay. Gu Ran went to the back row. As a result, as soon as the car door opened, it was filled with inexplicable hair, and non-human organisms had stayed here. Dog hair. Cat hair. Drip. Su Qing honked her horn. Gu Ran sat in, and the comfort of the seat cushion was not comparable to that of a long-distance bus. You also need to fasten your seatbelt in the back row. Su Qing stared at the rearview mirror. How can Su Qing handle things that traffic police almost ignore? Seeing Gu Ran obediently looking for her seatbelt and honestly fastening it, she smiled from the bottom of her heart. Turn on the signal, press the accelerator, and the car smoothly exits the parking space. Gu Ran stared out the window and quickly became obsessed, with unknown flowers blooming and clinging to the electric pole. Various palm trees resemble patrolling soldiers, while tall banyan trees are like ancient surviving elders, narrating history on the streets. There are also various strange-shaped trees, and the most impressive one for Gu Ran is the tree with a trunk similar to a fine-necked wine bottle. Then, there are pristine white beaches, clear seawater, and coconut groves. Men and women wearing swimsuits, old and young walking, holding surfboards, like surfers charging towards the sea. In the sea, one can even see the archipelago of stars when looking far away. The visibility is too good, which makes people suspect that I used to be nearsighted and now I'm wearing glasses. After all, it was midsummer, and after looking for a long time, my eyes hurt a bit. Gu Ran reluctantly withdrew his gaze. I don't know when music started playing in the car. If you feel happy, keep busy. If you feel tired, just let yourself go, listen to what others say and make your own decisions. I don't want to have too many emotions. Su Qing held the steering wheel with both hands, her right hand higher than her left, and her slender index finger tapped the steering wheel to the beat. A song that is very suitable for psychologists, Gu Ran added. Su Qing's eyes under the sunglasses glanced at the rearview mirror and said, suitable for everyone, a psychologist is not special. Yes, Gu Ran could only nod. The car left the main road and began to climb uphill. Haicheng is a coastal city, but apart from the sea, it is surrounded by mountains. Whether it is a bus, self-driving tour, or taking a high-speed rail, it must pass through a long tunnel. The trees on the hillside are lush, with palm, banana, and so on. In the trees, one can occasionally see isolated households with courtyards. As if returning to the countryside, the modern blue BMW seems to be leisurely. Finally, the car drove into a spacious courtyard with a sign on the wall that read, Jinghai Psychological Sanatorium. It's more like a courtyard, quite exquisite. Generally, hotels don't have such a large floor area, and there is even a sports field inside. Gu Ran is very satisfied with this environment. He doesn't exercise much usually, but it's different from whether there is a sports field. Perhaps we can consider playing basketball frequently. No, since we're at the beach, learning to surf is the best option. In my longing, the car has already stopped. Although there is no real parking lot, the parking spaces are still specially drawn, enough to accommodate 20 cars. Thank you. Gu Ran released his seatbelt and got off to pick up his luggage. When he opened the car door, Su Qing pressed the trunk open button, took off her sunglasses, turned off the car, and then walked slowly down. She was behind Gu Ran and then smiled. When Gu Ran sat down, he was very careful, and his clothes were still stained with the hair of the puppy. She finally understood why Gu Ran hesitated when getting on the car. Since she bought her car, it has been a long time since her mother first sat there. For the first time carrying a person, she has forgotten to clean up the dog fur left by the last time she took the little dog out to play. Qing held her hands in front of her, with a slender and graceful figure. Her breasts were not plump, but very full. She wore a beige halter top with sleeves, but her shoulders were exposed, and the front hem of the clothes was tucked into blue jeans. Simplicity and delicacy. She enjoyed Gu Ran's luggage for a while and waited for him to take it off before closing the trunk before moving forward. "I'll treat you to dinner." "No need, go report directly," Gu Ran replied. "It's in the clinic cafeteria, which can be considered as taking you to find the way." Gu Ran thought for a moment and nodded, "Thank you." By the way, Qing leaned over, her eyes bright, and her bright lips slowly burst into a smile. Gu Ran's heart skipped a beat, and their breath was very close, as if they were about to blend together. "What's wrong?" He took a half step back. "I have something to ask." "What's going on?" "On a personal level, quite intimate and in depth. Men and women often have deep conversations. Even unpleasant ones. It's important to always believe in a man's lascivious nature and never trust a woman's purity. Everyone is the same. If it's different, please see a doctor." "What's the problem?" Gu Ran couldn't help but be tempted. He liked beautiful women. This is one of the strong evidence that he is a normal person. Qing smiled slightly, looking really pretty. She whispered, "Do you have any hair on your butt?" Gu Ran lifted his head and looked left and right. "What do you mean?" With an expression of, "You're not Qing, the super beautiful woman herself, but a mental illness in the clinic. You stole the key and pretended to be Qing to pick someone up. Gu Ran nodded twice and said, "That's what I think." "Isn't it normal for your buttocks to grow hair?" "You don't even know this physiological knowledge, do you?" "But asking someone if their buttocks have grown hair is very abnormal," Gu Ran affirmed. Qing gave him a dissatisfied look and said, "What I'm saying is that you have dog hair on your butt, little colored dog." Gu Ran quickly looked back and saw white hair sticking to his clothes one by one, which he couldn't even pat with his hand and was very stubborn. "Thank you," Damei smiled contentedly. "I reminded you early, otherwise when you arrive at the cafeteria, you will be able to perfectly integrate into the Qinghai Psychological Sanatorium. This is a psychological clinic, only called a sanatorium, for the sake of its appeal. It's not doctors here, but patients with mental problems. So, which side will those with dog hair on their buttocks be integrated into?" Gu Ran remained silent and cleaned his dog hair one by one. "Ah." Qing extended a fair finger and tentatively poked his shoulder, "Say thank you." "Thank you. Thank you, Sister Qing." Qing taught him word by word. "You're really shameless." Gu Ran sighed. Qing smiled and said, "Give up." Gu Ran reacted and said, "Is this what you mean by declaring war?" Qing nodded, the victory was in her grasp. "Are you seriously trying to win, or are you joking?" Gu Ran asked. "Of course, it's a serious desire to win. Who cares about winning or losing when joking?" Gu Ran also smiled, exuding great charm. His tall and slender figure bathed in the sunlight, radiating a vibrant vitality. "I can admit defeat when I'm joking, but I'll take it seriously. I'll never surrender," he said. "Then keep going," Qing said. "Let's go, eat." Gu Ran followed her with the box, checking while walking to confirm that there was no dog hair on her body. In addition to paying attention to her body, her eyes always couldn't help but sneak a peek at Qing's back. Her black hair was loose, her buttocks were full and round in her jeans, and her legs were straight and slender. When taking a step, there is no gap in the moment when the legs cross and pass by, extremely tight. As soon as he entered, Gu Ran let out a comfortable sigh, and the cafeteria was well air-conditioned. There are 2 ways to cook. 1. Take a tray and walk all the way over. When you see your favorite food, say hello, and the aunt will make a small bowl. Finally, there will be free soup and fruit. 2. Order the meal separately in the cafeteria, which is more expensive. There are a lot of seafood. The freshness of mackerel is obviously better than that in the inland supermarket. Gu Ran ordered mackerel, boiled pickled Chinese cabbage, ear squid, and a seasonal vegetable. Soup and free fruits are naturally indispensable. Su Qing also ordered a portion. The 2 of them casually found a seat to sit down. Gu Ran said, "Didn't you eat at McDonald's?" Su Qing, who had just picked up her chopsticks, stopped and stared at him. Gu Ran took a gulp of soup, sighed contentedly, and picked up his bowl to eat. While eating, he gestured for Su Qing to answer. "Did you stare at my butt hard just now?" Su Qing exclaimed in surprise. "Pop." Gu Ran tried his best to hold back, and his face turned red. Su Qing put down her chopsticks, crossed her fingers, propped her chin, and stared at Gu Ran, enjoying the performance of trying her best to hold back her hunger. Then, when Gu Ran was about to hold back, the witch smiled and said, "Do you want to see if my butt has grown hair?" Puff. Gu Ran quickly blocked it with his hand. Su Qing leaned back, clasped her hands on her chest, and looked down at Gu Ran with disdain. Whether it's Gu Ran staring at her buttocks at this vulgar thing, or his disgusting behavior of spitting rice, her expression and attitude are both right. Gu Ran is going crazy. He has never met such a person before, who has long hair on his buttocks. When the symptoms stabilized, he covered his hand with his mouth and had an extra grain of rice in his palm. He had done his best. Su Qing handed a tissue and then started eating without any concern, saying, "Human psychology is really strange. The grain of rice in your palm was still in your mouth a moment ago, but you can't eat it back because it was vomited out. If it's just accidentally dropped, the degree of concern will be greatly reduced, but what is the essential difference between the 2? Because spraying is not elegant and reminds people of vomiting, while dropping is associated with frugality and virtue." Gu Ran wiped his hands and carefully examined the woman in front of him. The more you look, the more difficult it becomes. Almost transparent and beautiful, the fingers holding chopsticks are slender and fair, and the lips eating are small and very soft. Just sitting in the cafeteria seems to have turned into heaven, full of radiance. Beautiful like an angel. Joseph Conrad wrote in The Heart of Darkness that, "True fear is the fear that people harbor of their imagination, and it is appropriate to place it here, isn't it?" Probably suitable, Gu Ran pondered. "Why don't you eat?" "I'm thinking about what can make you spit rice." Gu Ran's expression was cold and his tone was calm. Su Qing covered her mouth and smiled. "But if Spitfire is 10, she is only 3 now. I'll give you an idea." Su Qing continued to cover her mouth and smile. "Please teach me. You take off your pants and let me see your butt. I promise it will be as you wish." Gu Ran picked up chopsticks to eat. "He can't take off his pants or anything." "It's okay," Su Qing continued to persuade. Or rather encourage. "This is a mental health clinic, and no one will care about what you do. Trust me, really." Gu Ran couldn't bear it anymore and said, "I'm here to be a doctor, not a patient, let alone a monkey being played with. Stay optimistic, so easily influenced. Be careful not to be infected by patients and develop psychological shadows. Don't discriminate against patients. You, as a normal person, have also cast a psychological shadow on me." "I'm not a normal person." Su Qing's cheerful tone suddenly cooled down. "Ah." Gu Ran's mood at this moment was like snatching a pregnant woman's seat, a lame person's job, and a blind person's cane. "I am the world's #1 beauty," announced Su Qing, who claimed to be not a normal person. "Why don't you say you're the most beautiful woman in the universe?" Gu Ran felt sorry for her sympathy. "Not qualified." Su Qing said, being easily guided by others' emotions is enough for ordinary treatment. How can the surgery be performed? If it weren't for my mother's insistence on you, I wouldn't have let you go to the clinic. She picked up the plate, got up, and left. Gu Ran was stunned. She is not only a regular staff member, but also an interviewer responsible for assessment. Done. Gu Ran's heart is a bit cold. It's not about worrying about losing this job, as Su Qing said, he was appointed by the director of this clinic, and the contract has already been signed. Within 5 years, he cannot leave, and the clinic cannot dismiss him. What he truly felt discouraged was that Su Qing would relay her negative evaluation to the director. The director is kind to him and supports him in his studies, but in terms of professional level, he does not want to disappoint the other party. Gu Ran looked at Su Qing's back as she left, considering whether to stand up and keep her, so that she could give herself another chance. This time, she must respond to her provocation with an interview attitude and professionalism. He, who has always been excellent, has another idea. Whether he is qualified or not, time will prove. Starting to have a low evaluation under a 5-year contract may not necessarily be a bad thing, as it reduces pressure and allows one to perform to the expected level. At this moment, Su Qing, who placed the plate back at the recycling point, turned around and looked at Gu Ran. She compared her right hand to a gun and fired a shot at Gu Ran, then placed her index and middle fingers as the muzzle on her lips and blew lightly. She had a smile on her face. Gu Ran wants to curse out loud. But what if the other party is not teasing and is still being assessed? He replied with a calm smile, as if all his emotions were fake before, just cooperating with her. Su Qing, the world's most beautiful woman, self-proclaimed, walked away with a clear and pleasant laughter, like a beautiful cat stepping on your chest. When Gu Ran was eating, he chewed each bite 30 times and bit the food into thin pieces. After the meal was over, there was no one in the cafeteria. The aunt who was waiting to collect the dishes and wash them came over and sat diagonally opposite Gu Ran. Just arrived today. Auntie was very enthusiastic. Yes, Gu Ran's attitude was slightly approachable. I think you're quite normal. You'll be out soon, don't be nervous. Is Xiaoqing your attending doctor? It's rare. Xiaoqing has never been in charge of male patients before. It seems like she's worried about some kind of romantic relationship. It's empathy. Refers to a strong emotion that the visitor has towards the analyst. In the field of psychotherapists, it is common for patients to become lovers of doctors. Freud, the founder of the psychoanalytic school, had an affair with many patients. Auntie, I'm a doctor, not a patient, Gu Ran explained. There are also patients here who claim to be doctors. Before Gu Ran could speak, Auntie laughed and said, Haha, you're joking. But there are patients here who claim to be doctors. Then she lowered her voice and said, Su Qing is here. Su Qing. Gu Ran was taken aback. That's right. Auntie showed sympathy on her face. This child is young and beautiful, but she has a mental illness. We all cooperated with her treatment, making her think she is a psychologist. Only in this way can she behave like a normal person. You must not poke her. Never puncture her. She refers to the aunt in front of her. Gu Ran felt the aura of psychological shadows, and the aunt in front of her was a severely mentally ill patient with a monster born in the spiritual world. That's right. Gu Ran's face was solemn, but she thinks she's a psychologist and always needs to see patients, even undergo surgery. Where would a patient come from? Auntie glanced outside the cafeteria and said to Gu Ran, don't be fooled by her mental illness. She has a long illness and has become a good doctor. She has a wealth of professional knowledge. Gu Ran nodded and said, there are indeed some people who exhibit extraordinary talents in mental illness. Remember to cooperate with her in the future and never expose her, you know. Auntie earnestly advised. Auntie, don't worry, I still have this professional competence. As the conversation changed, Gu Ran curiously said, Auntie, do you know why she has a mental illness? Auntie whispered, she opened a snack shop, and a group of dog vendors came to eat. They took a liking to her dog and stole it to eat. That group of dog dealers came again. The first time, she cooked flies for them, the second time, she fried cockroach juice, the third time, she burned mice, and the fourth time, she chopped her own fingers for them to eat. Gu Ran calmly glanced at the cafeteria lady's left hand, which had lost her little finger, and then lowered her head to look at the food in front of her. Auntie, I still have to go report, let's go first. Waste of food. Auntie's favor towards him fell silent. Gu Ran smiled apologetically, but quickly slipped away. As I walked out of the cafeteria, I felt my whole body warm. I didn't know if it was because the air conditioning in the cafeteria was too low or if the atmosphere was too gloomy. Looking back at the empty cafeteria, Aunt Gu Ran carefully tidied up the plates alone, pulled her suitcase, walked into the 28-degree sun, and headed towards the office building. Private Diary. On August 1st, sunny, the cafeteria was too eerie, and Su Qing's buttocks were really round. Thank you to the leader of Matsuzan Shuhua, thank you to the leader of Tianshang Duyan, thank you to the leader of the Dolphin in Lingjiang, thank you to book enthusiasts such as Sakura Blossoms Falling with No Sound and Northern Avatar for their tips. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Why do beautiful women have boyfriends, and they're not me yet? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Why do beautiful women have boyfriends, and they're not me yet? The cafeteria is located between the residential area and the office building and is not difficult to find. The sound of splashing water came from the right side, and upon closer inspection, it was the gymnasium. It should be the sound coming from the swimming pool inside, but the sound was too loud, like someone struggling before drowning. There must be caregivers at the psychological hospital, but Gu Ran hesitated for a moment and decided to go see them. The door was ajar, and as it was pushed open, the splashing sound became louder. Gu Ran looked up and saw an old man swimming in the pool, with astonishing momentum, like a whale crawling on the water surface. The size of the water splashes is like the flood of Baisuzhen flooding Jinshan. The old man's expression was focused, constantly stirring the pool water with his body, causing the waves to rush ashore and hit the walls of the gymnasium, resembling a great mage with water attributes. At the edge of the swimming pool, there are leisurely caregivers who occasionally catch a glimpse of the old man in the pool, just like watching someone repair the Great Wall. Gu Ran quietly retreated, pondering in his heart the specific problem with the old man in the swimming pool. The psychological shadow was dissipating on him, although slowly but firmly, indicating that he had undergone surgery. Turning to my senses, I saw the office building in front of me, and from a distance, I could hear the cry of some kind of animal. Entering the office building, Gu Ran explained his intention to the front desk. Are you Gu Ran? The front desk is also a nurse with short hair, a cute apple face, and a perfect smile. I am Gu Ran. Hello Dr. Gu, the director has instructed that if a new doctor comes, you should go directly to the conference room on the 3rd floor. The other doctor has already arrived. Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Oh, by the way, please leave your luggage with me for now. I'll keep an eye on it for you. Gu Ran thanks again. When turning into the stairs, I found a man sitting in the lounge area of the lobby. I don't know what kind of mental illness it is. After entering the elevator, Gu Ran tidied up his clothes, took out his phone, and quickly scanned his hairstyle and teeth towards the front camera to ensure that his hairstyle was neat and there were no lunch residue on his teeth. The elevator reached the 3rd floor and slowly opened. He took a deep breath and walked out. The 3rd floor is full of consultation rooms, and the conference room is located on the innermost side, with 2 rooms on the left and 2 on the right. There is no one on the left, and on the right is a hanging sign of, in use. Gu Ran hesitated for a moment before knocking on the door. In. The voice is calm and elegant. Gu Ran pushed the door in, and everyone inside was staring at him. The Oval Office desk was occupied by a total of 6 people, with 4 wearing white coats and 2 wearing everyday clothes. One of them was the exquisite and beautiful Su Qing. Gu Ran didn't look carefully and looked at the woman sitting at the top. Aunt Jing. His tone was warm and respectful. The beautiful young woman Zhuang Jing smiled and pointed to the empty seat on the right with the pen in her hand. Sit down. Gu Ran nodded and quickly walked over to sit down. Another woman in regular clothes looked at him throughout the journey, and when Gu Ran looked over, she gave him a friendly smile. Gu Ran also smiled back. Let's continue, Zhuang Jing said. A young man wearing a white coat said, last night, Lulu fell ill once and ate bed sheets. This morning, when I was checking in, the condition worsened severely. It is expected that the area of psychological shadow will reach its minimum and enter the boundary in a week. Prepare for surgery. Yes, said the man in a white coat with a solemn expression. Don't be nervous. Zhuang Jing was very relaxed. This time, you can try the campfire. If you can control it, it will be used by you in the future. Thank you, Director. The man in the white coat visibly cheered up. Zhuang Jing looked down at a young woman wearing a white coat. The young woman wearing a white coat said, Wang Ruihan did not fall ill last night, and his irritability has been relieved. Director, I suggest transferring him to a sanatorium for recovery through rehabilitation. Zhuang Jing shook her head. He is only 14 years old and is about to enter high school. Through recuperation, even if his symptoms disappear completely before the start of the school year, there is a high probability that he will still experience sequelae. His physical strength will decrease compared to before the onset of the disease, his concentration will be difficult to sustain, and his ability to cope with stress will decrease, which is not conducive to the crucial high school education. Notify Wang Ruihan's family to come to the clinic for a meeting, inform the hospital to decide on the surgery, and see what the family thinks. Yes, the young woman in a white coat quickly jotted down in her notebook. All right, let's end the meeting. Everyone stood up one after another. This kind of summary meeting, similar to a ward round, should actually be held in the morning. However, Zhuang Jing has something to do in the morning, which is also the reason why she arranged for Su Qing to pick up Gu Ran. 4 people wearing white coats have gone out, and 3 have left, leaving only Zhuang Jing. It's been tough all the way, Zhuang Jing said to Gu Ran and another new doctor. No hard work, the new doctor hurriedly said. This is Chen Ku. Zhuang Jing introduced Gu Ran, and then introduced Gu Ran to Chen Ku. This is Gu Ran. Welcome to join the Jinghai Psychological Rehabilitation Center. She looked at Su Qing again and said, Xiao Qing, you come and lead them. The 3 of you will temporarily form a team and start to be responsible for patients separately in the future. Su Qing nodded. Zhuang Jing glanced at Gu Ran with beautiful eyes and asked her daughter with a light smile, how do you think he's going to pick him up? Gu Ran's face remained calm. He is mentally prepared and has built an indestructible psychological defense line. Not bad, Su Qing said, I have excellent memory, careful observation, the courage to explore the depths of my goals, and the perseverance to never give up in the face of failure. Excellent memory and careful observation, does it mean remembering her at McDonald's? Do you have the courage to dig deep into the target's heart, which means daring to mention that she used McDonald's packaging bags as a hat? The perseverance of not giving up in the face of failure is to never give up and refuse to say, thank you, Sister Su. It seems like a lot has happened, Zhuang Jing smiled, showing the composure of a mature woman. She has a graceful figure and the clothes inside her white coat are also very exquisite and elegant. Chen Ku's eyes turned around and looked at Gu Ran and Su Qing. The man was handsome and divine, while the woman was exquisitely beautiful, much like a couple. Let's take a break today, and tomorrow I'll take you to choose your career cards. Zhuang Jing said, by the way, do you all have a place to live? I have it, Chen Ku replied softly. I have a college friend who works in Haicheng and asked me to share a room with her. Gu Ran said, I have it too. I contacted the landlord before coming, found a location, and made an appointment to go and see the house this afternoon. Zhuang Jing nodded elegantly, every move exuding charm. If you have difficulty finding me, the clinic where you live can still provide it. As she spoke, she smiled and said, as long as you're willing to work the night shift. Gu Ran and Chen Ku both laughed. Alright, I have something else to do. You can go back and find Xiaoqing if you have any questions, Zhuang Jing said. After Zhuang Jing left, the three of them added WeChat, and Su Qing built a small group called Jinghai Team 2. Did the previous three wearing white coats make the first team? 3 people per team. Gu Ran pondered in his heart, feeling like a police officer, preparing for a special operations team or a demolition team. They occasionally explode, but what explodes is the patient's spiritual world. Sister Qing, is there anything we can do? Chen Ku took the initiative to ask. Have, Miss Qing, please speak. Dissolve. Su Qing left first, her legs really long. Chen Ku was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and said to Gu Ran, Director and Sister Qing seem to get along very well. Yeah. Gu Ran's words were inconsistent and he didn't think Su Qing was easy to get along with. Let me formally introduce myself. My name is Chen Ku, Chen from Chen Vinegar, and Ku from Wang, and Ku. Gu Ran. Of course so, of course. Gu Ran paused for a moment and said, of course it is, intentionally. Sorry, subconsciously. Chen Ku smiled apologetically and flicked her hair. It's okay, I'm used to it. Besides, Gu is someone who looks at the thatched cottage 3 times, not intentionally. Are you mocking me? Chen Ku pointed at him like a young girl and smiled happily. Sure enough, psychologists like to joke around. Just having fun in the midst of hardship. Gu Ran also smiled. I have developed a liking for her. People who like to laugh have a special charm, especially Chen Ku, who is very good looking and has a petite and slender figure. The two of them are still in the same group, and in this unfamiliar city, people naturally seek a sense of belonging. Please give more guidance in the future, Chen Ku reached out. Mutual. Gu Ran shook hands with her. The two of them left the office together and arrived at the lobby on the first floor. The man who had been in the rest area quickly got up and walked towards them. Ake, are you all okay? The man, with a delicate appearance, approached and asked. Chen Ku smiled a little deeper and then introduced her to Gu Ran. Gu Ran, this is my boyfriend Xiao Yiming. Hello, Gu Ran greeted with a smile. Chen Ku continued to introduce, Yiming, these are my colleagues who joined the same group, Gu Ran. Xiao Yiming said, of course so. Gu Ran smiled politely yet awkwardly. Haha, Chen Ku smiled and bent slightly, her waist very thin, she chuckled and said, it was Gu who looked at the thatched cottage 3 times. It was intentional, it was random, ha ha ha. Xiao Yiming smiled and said, sorry, my girlfriend has a lower smile. Just now when I introduced myself, Chen Ku also said, of course it is. No wonder you are a couple, Gu Ran said with a slightly speechless admiration. Actually, upon hearing his name, most people would say, of course it is. Fortunately, his name is not Gu Yi, but it's probably not that his father doesn't want it. It's likely just because Gu Ran's grandfather called intentionally, no, Gu Yi. After listening to Gu Ran's words, Xiao Yiming was very happy, obviously proud of having a girlfriend like Chen Ku. Chen Ku smiled and said, it's time to leave. Fei Fei is still waiting for me. Okay, Xiao Yiming doted on Gu Ran and said, brother, see you next time. They left first, and Gu Ran had to pick up his luggage, which was 1 step behind. Besides, the front desk nurse had to add him to WeChat, which also delayed the time. Xiao Yiming and Chen Ku arrived at the parking lot. Sitting in the car, Chen Ku fastened her seatbelt and chatted on her phone. Xiao Yiming started the car and used navigation to locate the location. As he entered the destination, he said, "This guy is quite handsome." "It's okay, isn't it? I don't know if I have a girlfriend either." The car slowly started and drove out of the parking space. Xiao Yiming suddenly smiled and asked, "So serious, who are you chatting with?" Chen Ku sighed wearily and didn't answer, directly handing the phone screen to Xiao Yiming for a look. Xiao Yiming quickly glanced at the note and saw that it was Fei Fei and smiled, "I haven't eaten lunch until now. I want your best friend to treat me. Please also treat me alone. The cost of living in Haicheng is high, and Fei Fei's request for me to share a room also means reducing the rent. Don't mention asking her to treat you." Chen Ku's tone was slightly serious. "Let me tell you, what meal is still missing from her. If you want me to invite her, I will ask her to help take care of my delicate, capable, and lovable girlfriend." "Fuck you," Chen Ku smiled and continued chatting with Fei Fei. The two are college best friends and young women, naturally looking forward to the upcoming shared rental life. Moreover, she finally entered the dream of working at the Jinghai Psychological Sanatorium, becoming a student of Zhuangjing, and arrived at the long-awaited Haicheng, her mood refreshed. "Ha!" At this moment, Xiao Yiming suddenly honked his horn. Chen Ku looked up and saw Gu Ran pulling down his suitcase under the scorching sun. Xiao Yiming put down the car window and said, "Hey buddy, where are you going? I'll see you off." "No need, thank you. The house I rented is nearby." Gu Ran replied. Xiao Yiming didn't insist either, raised the car window, and stepped on the accelerator to leave. Chen Ku lowered her head and continued chatting, discussing with Fei Fei where to play tonight. Fei Fei said she would ride her little donkey, take her to watch the sunset, then go to the night market to eat seafood, go to the beach at night, surround the campfire, and listen to wandering singers singing. Fei Fei. "By the way, have you brought your slippers?" "No, go buy them first." Chen Ku quickly replied, her fingertips as fast as lightning. "Wang Kiki. I brought it. I also brought a camera. This guy doesn't even have a car. Although it's not as hot inland in Haicheng, it's more comfortable to just soak in the sea on such days." She heard what Xiao Yiming said, but was too lazy to reply. Her boyfriend occasionally shows off, and she has become accustomed to it. But this guy is a psychologist, he will definitely make a lot of money in the future, Xiao Yiming chattered as the car drove away along the slope. Standing on the slope, you can see the sea. Gu Ran put down his suitcase and took crazy photos. He was full of desire to share and wanted to send it to his parents immediately, but in order to save traffic, he decided to wait until there was a wireless network available before speaking. "Well, make sure to ask what the wireless network password for the clinic is tomorrow. The house he was looking for is nearby, deliberately chosen. The landlord has arrived, riding a small electric donkey and wearing a helmet. He is more honest than the average person, and is willing to sacrifice his life. After all, there is still a lot of money to spend. After looking at the house, everything is good, but the rent is too expensive. Can it be cheaper?" Gu Ran asked. "Tisk." The landlord didn't look down upon it, but found it difficult and troublesome. He pondered and said, "Well, young man, cheap is definitely not cheap. I don't have to worry about renting out at this price. I also have an apartment down the mountain specifically designed for rent, which is cheaper than here. Why don't you go take a look?" "Take a look. Look at it, it's free of money. He has plenty of time now. If it doesn't work, let's talk about it." The landlord used a small electric donkey to lead him downhill. He didn't have a helmet, obviously the landlord didn't care about his life or death. The wind blows head-on, and the palm trees on both sides of the road are tall and straight, with mottled light and shadow. In the distance, seagulls soar in the sea. Young man, let me tell you, in Haicheng, riding an electric bike is the most comfortable. If the landlord were a beautiful woman, it would be great, Gu Ran thought. Then he doesn't have to carry the suitcase with both hands, but with one hand carrying the suitcase and the other holding the beautiful woman's waist to prevent falling. The landlord's rental apartment is a building, which Gu Ran doesn't quite understand. It looks like a small apartment with only 40 years of real estate. A large room, including bedroom, living room, kitchen. The bedroom is on the second floor, resembling a warehouse. There is also a separate bathroom. How about having the cleaning company clean it? The bedding is new and we charge you 3,000 yuan per month, starting from a year's rent. Gu Ran looked left and right, very satisfied, but also conflicted about the price, 3,000 yuan per month. But he checked rental websites and knew that the price was considered low. In Haicheng, the monthly rent for slightly better locations is over 4,000 yuan, and there are those over 10,000 yuan. Okay. That's all for the house. Everything was done, and Gu Ran lay on the sofa with his eyes closed, feeling tired. When the exhaustion passed, it was the loneliness of being alone in a strange place. This loneliness is like a hand, pressing him into a water tank, feeling a little suffocated with discomfort. I really want to go back. Abandon Haicheng, return to familiar places, return to parents, and work and live in a place full of acquaintances. This feeling is very similar to his first time staying at school in high school. Like dark clouds obscuring the sun, the psychological shadow rapidly spread in his spiritual world. Gu Ran opened his left eye, his eyeballs rolling in his orbit, and coldly observed the world. Don't bother me. Gu Ran didn't even open his right eye and spoke calmly. The left eyeball settled down, the eyelids slowly closed, and the feeling of loneliness swept away. The psychological shadow disappeared like a mouse. Gu Ran knows that he is different from others. Even a psychologist who can enter the spiritual world of others cannot control their own inner world. In order to prevent infection from patients, they always maintain optimism and positivity, and some even develop a playful personality. But he can. While obtaining the qualification of a psychologist, he is also able to control his own psychological shadows and to some extent constrain the monsters in the shadows. He has been studying hard these years not only to become a qualified psychologist, but also to understand what has happened to him. After all these years, he still doesn't understand, but he has some speculations. What others cannot do, he can do it, and there are only two possibilities in this situation. 1. One day, he will dominate the world. 2. He is mentally ill. Private Diary. On August 1st, Sunny, why does Chen-ku have a boyfriend? Damn it. I am lonely and miss my parents, but as a psychologist, I know that this attachment will eventually disappear due to habit. Emotions are such fragile things. For example, when I found out that Chen-ku had a boyfriend, I felt regretful. But now, at night, I can't even remember her appearance. As for who she is with, it doesn't matter. Am I really unable to dominate the world? I don't want to become mentally ill. Is there a third possibility? There must be, as long as I feel there is, Thank you, CEO, for your reward. Thank you for the reward of ink dye roll. Thank you for the reward from the lone soul of the cold moon. Thank you to book enthusiasts such as Majiko, Piaoling, and Tai Kai Shukuan for their tips. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Mental patients teach me internal skills and mental methods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Mental patients teach me internal skills and mental methods. Chen-ku's best friend Fei Xiaoxiao, her rental house is located in the Chunhai district of Haicheng, just like the Jinghai Psychological Rehabilitation Center. The reason for choosing this name is twofold. Firstly, because the flowers here are in full bloom. Secondly, because it is blown by the sea breeze, like a spring breeze, creating a sharp contrast with the heat waves in the hot sea area, which are like barbecue grills. Three people didn't go to a high-end hotel, but under the leadership of Fei Xiaoxiao, they found a food street. Here, I pick seafood from the market and have the store process it, like a buffet. Fei Xiaoxiao's excitement was evident, and she was delighted with her friend's arrival. They are sitting outside the store. Haicheng people eat outdoors and the scenery outside is beautiful. There is a coconut tree next to the table, and the roots are covered with gravel, resembling a potted plant with a sea view. This small arrangement allowed Chen Ku to take several photos. When the seafood came up, Fei Xiaoxiao said again, "Have some wine." "I don't know," Chen Ku said, but her body was a bit eager to try. "No, no, no, no." Xiao Yiming repeatedly refused. "I have to drive back to Luqing later, so I can't drink." "Are you going back today?" Fei Xiaoxiao was puzzled. "Busy with work," Xiao Yiming said. "It's truly worth having a factory at home," Fei Xiaoxiao half envied and half joked. "Xiao Chang, how can you compare to two beautiful women who have made a fortune in Haicheng?" Xiao Yiming felt a bit proud in his modesty. But then again, there are so many beautiful and handsome men that Ake went to the psychological clinic. "Are there many beautiful women?" Fei Xiaoxiao asked with ill intentions. "Don't give me any tricks, what I'm saying is true. Of course, my Ku is also one of the beauties." Xiao Yiming didn't hesitate, but added, "There are also many handsome guys, especially a guy named Gu Ran, who is also new." "Are you really handsome?" Fei Xiaoxiao asked Chen Ku. Chen Ku ate the seafood and replied, "It's okay, I didn't pay much attention. I stared at teacher Zhuang Jing. Zhuang Jing is also good. Looking." Xiao opened his mouth when he shouted, but in the end, he held it back. The three of them were chatting, and the stall was filled with people. There were also those who came directly with their suitcases. Fei Xiaoxiao looked around and said, "This place has also become a popular spot on the internet. In the future, we will have to go through the streets and alleys to find new niche and delicious restaurants." Chen Ku gestured to herself that she had something to say. She covered her mouth and swallowed the food before saying, together, "It's necessary. You guys look, I'll come over during the National Day holiday and take me to eat." Xiao Yiming smiled and then stood up, "I'll go get 2 more bottles of drinks." "Help me get a coconut," Fei Xiaoxiao shouted. As Xiao Yiming walked away, she suddenly leaned towards Chen Ku. Chen Ku was enjoying the delicious food slowly and deliciously. "How's it going?" Fei Xiaoxiao asked in a low voice. "How about what?" "That handsome guy. Is he really handsome or just average?" Chen Ku lowered her voice and said, "Super handsome." Fei Xiaoxiao was excited for a moment, and Chen Ku's mood also became active. The two of them were not because of the handsome guy, but because of the pleasure of chatting with their best friend. "When I get to know him well, I'll introduce him to you," Chen Ku promised, thinking of her best friend. Fei Xiaoxiao took out the complete conch meat and dipped it in juice. "Eat." She fed Chen Ku with her own hands. Conch, boiled and white, is the kind of small one that needs to be chosen. The smaller the one, the more tender it is. The larger the conch, the thicker its meat is, suitable for stir-frying or cold dishes. Chen Ku asked, "Do you like big and small ones?" "Size doesn't seem to matter, does it? Roughness is everything." "Fuck you, pervert." The two of them laughed together. "What's so happy about?" Xiao Yiming came back holding 3 coconuts and asked with a smile. "It's none of your business." Chen Ku was in a good mood. "Ku wants to break up with you and live with me," said Fei Xiaoxiao. "Really?" Xiao Yiming sat down. "Really," Chen Ku said. Fei Xiaoxiao hugged Chen Ku's slender shoulder and gestured with the other hand under her chin, showing a proud and victorious expression towards Xiao Yiming. Before Xiao Yiming could react, she burst into laughter herself. After dinner, the two of them saw Qiao Yiming off and tidied up his things in the rental room. 2 bedrooms and 1 living room, with Chen Ku sleeping in the second bedroom. The rent is reduced by 500, and each person is responsible for their own meals. Fei Xiaoxiao knelt on one knee on the bed, helping to make the bed. She glanced at Chen Ku, who was carefully tidying up, and tentatively said, "Why do I think you and your boyfriend have a bad relationship? Did you argue on the way here?" "Because I insist on working in Haicheng for at least 5 years." "That's also true." Fei Xiaoxiao nodded suddenly. "He can't do without the factory at home. You have to pursue your dreams, but as long as there is love, long-distance love is not a big deal. Those who break up are all unloved. You need to have confidence in your love." Chen Ku smiled lightly. Fei Xiaoxiao looked at her with a quiet and introverted temperament, beautiful features, and eye-catching eyes. Her close-fitting clothes outlined curves, and with the movement of her arms, her chest slightly rippled. And the slender waist, slender legs, especially the focus and softness of cleaning up household chores, have a special beauty. Fei Xiaoxiao, as a woman, is fascinated by it. Even if it's divided, it doesn't matter, she couldn't help but say, with your qualifications, you can find a billionaire in Haicheng. "Oh, I understand now. No wonder Qiao Yiming is arguing with you and preventing you from pursuing your dreams. It's just that he lacks confidence and feels like he can't keep you. He's worried that you'll be pursued by richer and more handsome people and won't be able to control himself." "Didn't he let me come?" Chen Ku said for her boyfriend. "He didn't let you come, so you didn't come." "He didn't let you come, but he couldn't stop you." Chen Ku's hand movements paused. "I'm being too talkative. I'm being a fanatic. I'm talking nonsense. Ku, don't think too much." Chen Ku smiled helplessly and continued to tidy up. "Ah." Fei Xiaoxiao suddenly lowered her voice, "After tidying up, go out and take a walk." Chen Ku was moved, but still refused. "Tomorrow's first day at work, rest early. The day after tomorrow is Friday, go out on Friday night." "Okay." Although they didn't go out for a walk, the two of them chatted until midnight, yawning and reluctant to sleep. The next morning, the two of them got up late and hurriedly went out in a bustling manner. Fei Xiaoxiao rode a small electric donkey to charge. Chen Ku stuffed the hem of her shirt into her jeans while running towards the bus stop. "Get on the bus, tidy up your hair, and wait until the bus starts climbing up the hill to complete all the grooming. The morning in Haicheng is early, with bright sunshine outside the window, model tree shade, and air-conditioned buses on. Jinghai Mental Rehabilitation Center has arrived, please get off the car through the back door." Chen Ku got off the car, rushed into the clinic gate, held down the bag on her shoulder, stepped out of her legs, and ran. The sunlight shone on her, just like the female lead in a TV drama. "Little girl." Chen Ku turned her head to look. An old man poked his head out from the 3rd floor of the residential area and shouted to her. The doctor said, "Just take a 150-minute walk, don't run." "Old man, do you think he looks like a new patient?" A voice came from a window on the 2nd floor. Miss Shuang said that life therapy is necessary for everyone, but she is not human. A figure appeared in another window on the 2nd floor. "Are they new doctors?" "I heard 2 new doctors came yesterday. 2 more servants, nice." A whole wall, covered in tapestry, with many windows, several mentally ill people standing at the window chatting, like picture frames. "These people are the people in the photo." Chen Ku waved her hand and shouted with a smile, "Good morning." Like a gentle ray of sunlight shining past and then reflecting back, the patients all said, "Good morning, new doctor." Chen Ku continues to sprint. "Come on." Everyone cheered and cheered for her. Chen Ku rushed into the office building, stopped at the front desk, and quickly asked apple-faced nurse, "Am I late?" The nurse looked at the table and said, "There's 1 more minute." She became excited. Chen Ko rushed to the corner and saw that the elevator was on the 4th floor, so she didn't want to climb the stairs directly. Sorry, I'm late. As she walked into the director's office, she had regained a bit of composure, but her soft chest kept undulating, silently easing her breathing. Zhuang Jing smiled and said, "Good morning." Chen Ku's face is a bit hot. I don't know if the director heard her say hello to the patient, but fortunately her face is already very red and hot now. "Good morning," she bowed in response. She was the last one to come. Gu Ran and Su Qing have arrived, each with a sofa, like Zhuang Jing's male and female secretaries. "Xiao Qing, take them to the ward round first and familiarize themselves with the process," Zhuang Jing said to Su Qing. "Okay," Su Qing left the sofa. "Aunt Jing, then I'll leave first." Gu Ran followed up. Zhuang Jing smiled and said, "Go ahead." Chen Ku bowed to Zhuang Jing again before being the last one to leave the office. Outside, she apologized again. "I almost arrived late on the first day of work, it's really unacceptable." Su Qing didn't say anything, and she wasn't really late. She wouldn't mind this small matter. She thinks she has a good personality, and she also planned to let go of Gu Ran before. It was Gu Ran who didn't know what to do and brought up old things, so don't blame her for being ruthless. Su Qing first took them to the 2nd floor, which was full of offices, including doctors, nurses, accountants, and the bathroom. There are 2 doctors' offices, and Su Qing takes them into 202. Very spacious, with a row of thick bookshelves and filing cabinets against the wall, as well as a water dispenser, coffee machine, and beverage freezer. Printers and the like are naturally indispensable. There is even a changing room. There are only 3 desks arranged in the shape of 3. "Chen Ku, this is yours." Su Qing pointed to the desk closest to the door. She took 3 more steps forward, placed her hand on the middle table, and looked at Gu Ran, saying, "This is yours." Gu Ran looked at the innermost desk, which was different from the first 2. This one was filled with documents, as well as daily necessities such as potted plants and mirrors, clearly belonging to Su Qing. Su Qing's intention is very obvious. To monitor Gu Ran and prohibit him from fishing at work. Gu Ran felt it was unnecessary and said, "Sister Qing, I was wrong." Su Qing said, "It's too late." Was it late to allocate the office desk, or is it too late to admit the mistake now? Su Qing pointed to the changing room and said, "Change your clothes." Chen Ku changed first, and then it was Gu Ran's turn. Su Qing also changed into a white coat. "On the way to the living area," she said, "according to the regulations in the office, you should also wear this outfit, but I don't make any requirements, but remember to put on your white coat when entering and leaving the living area and ward. It can remind you that you are a psychologist, not a patient. Taking off your white coat also reminds you that you are an ordinary person, not a psychologist." 3 people walked into the living area, and behind them were 3 more caregivers, 2 women and 1 man. From the windows in the living area, it can be seen that the patients living here have at least no suicidal tendencies and their conditions are relatively stable. Those who live here are either not seriously ill or have completed surgery in the ward and receive treatment through lifestyle therapy. There are basically no major problems and they will not harm themselves or others. Su Qing entered the first room with 2 doctors and 3 nurses, 101. Gu Ran checked the information in his hand. Name: Zhao Wenjie, age 36, family: father, mother, wife, daughter, and some more detailed information. Symptom: on March 5, 2019, I suddenly felt like I had internal strength. After resigning, I closed down several times and almost starved to death. I was hospitalized for treatment. Due to the small area of psychological shadow, surgery cannot be performed, and antipsychotic drugs can only be used for treatment. On May 2, 2019, discharged from the hospital. On June 12, 2020, he suffered from depression after suffering from schizophrenia. When his condition was severe, he wanted to practice iron sand palm. On June 13 of the same year, he was admitted for treatment, but the area of psychological shadow was still insufficient. On October 24, 2021, fully recovered and returned to work after discharge, leading a normal life. On January 1, 2023, while traveling with his family, he snatched a 3-month-old child from a high-speed train, claiming that the child was a unique martial arts genius and wanted to take him as his disciple. On January 2, 2023, he was admitted for treatment, but his psychological shadow area was still insufficient. He was diagnosed with bipolar type I disorder and treated with antipsychotic drugs and lithium salts. On January 3, 2023, the condition improved significantly, and only lithium salt was used for maintenance treatment, while being kept in the hospital for observation and using lifestyle therapy. Entering the ward, the 3 doctors and nurses remained motionless, waiting for Zhao Wenjie to finish his work. He sat cross-legged on the bed, swallowing towards the sun outside the window, breathing clearly and forcefully, and his chest bulging and contracting like a toad. Ha! With both hands pressed down, Zhao Wenjie exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and slowly opened his eyes. Dr. Su, Zhao Wenjie took the initiative to greet him with a gentle and friendly tone. Su Qing nodded and asked, "How was today?" "The improvement of internal strength is slow," sighed Zhao Wenjie. "After all, I am just a lucky ordinary person who entered this industry. That child is the true genius, unfortunately. Internal strength is fake," Su Qing said. Zhao Wenjie smiled and shook his head, but did not defend himself. Su Qing looked back and glanced at Gu Ran and Chen Ku, saying, "Which of you is interested in chatting with him?" "I'll do it," Gu Ran said. Su Qing stepped aside, holding her hands on her chest. Her attitude instantly changed from being just a matter of business to watching the excitement. Gu Ran stepped forward. "Do you really have internal strength?" he asked. "Yes," Zhao Wenjie answered softly and confidently. "Can you teach me? I have always been interested in internal strength and have fantasized about flying roofs and walls, heroes saving beauty." "Don't hide it from me," Zhao Wenjie looked into Gu Ran's eyes. "Flying eaves and walls and heroes save the beauty are not your true thoughts. Although there is almost no pause time, these 2 words are the result of your thinking because they are safer." "What does it mean?" Gu Ran couldn't understand. "I can see your inner indulgence. To put it simply, if you gain internal power and learn how to use it, you will take actions like a flower picker." Puff. The 2 female nurses turned their heads and covered their mouths, chuckling. The male nurse is also smiling, just and upright. "Just for example, the flower picker is easier to understand," Zhao Wenjie also smiled. "Perhaps it's just a liking for theft. The 7 major crimes are not necessarily lust. I noticed that you separated obtaining internal power from learning how to use internal power. Is there a difference between the 2? Gu Ran asked. "One internal mental skill, one martial arts move. I guess you definitely don't know how to learn martial arts moves. Your speculation stems from distrust of me, and I don't want to explain it much. I don't know martial arts moves, otherwise I wouldn't be in a mental hospital, but in a scientific institute. Only that child, such a genius, can create true martial arts moves, promote internal strength, and open up a new discipline for humanity. You have a big picture concept." Zhao Wenjie shook his head and said, "It's for myself. Returning to the initial question, can I learn it? Anyway, there are no martial arts moves, so it's okay to teach me internal strength, right?" Gu Ran said. "Give it a try." Zhao Wenjie raised his hand and took out the posture of traditional Chinese medicine pulse detection. Gu Ran reached out his hand. Zhao Wenjie placed his finger on his wrist and closed his eyes in contemplation. "Your talent is similar to mine, very poor, but it can." Zhao Wenjie opened his eyes and was a bit excited. "Starting from tomorrow, come to my ward as soon as possible and share with me." You can start in 3 years. Okay, I'll come tomorrow. The group went out and arrived at the corridor. Let's talk about it. Su Qing lightly lifted her chin at Gu Ran, and the group leader's posture was full of queen charm. I have decided to study with him for 3 years. If I cannot get started in 3 years, it should make him doubt the authenticity of my internal strength. Do you really want to learn? Chen Ku couldn't help but say. Isn't it very cost-effective to cure a mentally ill person in 3 years? Gu Ran said, of course, this is just an attempt. If surgery is not taken, psychotherapy is a long process, and recurrence is even more common. When treating patients, psychologists would have tried various therapies because the human mind is too mysterious, unlike the body, which can prescribe the right medicine. Many times, psychologists are just ordinary people at a loss and powerless in front of patients. Su Qing nodded and said, you can try, but after all, I am the team leader. Just a reminder to you. Leader, please speak. Gu Ran's posture is very low, and Su Qing's clinical experience is richer than him. After learning internal power, don't become a flower picker. 6 people, 4 are holding back their laughter, and 1 is being laughed at. Gu Ran said, I feel so foolish. Su Qing smiled. At this point, Gu Ran had already felt that what she would say next would definitely not be good, but he still underestimated her level of malice. The psychologist, who only had a good-looking appearance, spoke in a gentle and playful tone, saying, it's not just a feeling. Excessive. Private diary. On August 2nd, sunny, the day before Friday, the office really enjoyed it and released 3 doctor-style films to study. If I really have inner strength. Whether it's true or false, the law is useless to me, right? It's okay to become a flower picker, right? Doctor's diary. If there were no martial arts novels, how would Zhao Wenjie's mental illness be manifested? I spent 3 years digging into Zhao Wenjie's heart to see what had happened to him that made him so escape reality. Obviously, this must be something he would rather die than cover up, and even suffer from mental illness as a result. I want him to muster the courage to speak up. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. When you pull up that sea. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. When you pull up that sea. After teasing Gu Ran, Su Qing entered room 102 with a calm expression, even a hint of coldness. The speed and flexibility of transformation are as simple as changing a mask. Considering the environment, it can be said to be schizophrenia. Gu Ran and Chen Ku flipped through the materials in their hands. The patient of 102 is a young woman. Lu Xiaoting, only 2 years older than the 2 of them, was preparing to get married before being hospitalized, but she had cancer and her mental state was also abnormal. At first, my boyfriend came very frequently, but after a while, there was gradually no news. After arriving at Jinghai, Zhuang Jing personally served as the attending physician. Lu Xiaoting's spirit quickly recovered, but she refused to be discharged and wanted to spend the last period of her life in Jinghai. Not willing to be discharged from the hospital, and also someone who is bound to die, no one is certain that Lu Xiaoting's condition will not recur, which is also the reason why she lives on the 1st floor. She can't die by jumping out of the window. Naturally, the sockets in the 1st floor ward are also decorative and not powered on. Even when taking medicine, nurses will coax children to check their tongues to prevent patients from hiding medicine. Lu Xiaoting, Su Qing said. Lu Xiaoting is painting by the window. In the azure sea, the yacht is pulling out surging white tail waves. Good morning, Lu Xiaoting turned around with a smile on her face. Chen Ku recognized her and was one of the window people who greeted her. She couldn't help feeling regretful from the bottom of her heart. Lu Xiaoting has delicate features and a body that is not only attractive, but also in line with public aesthetics. She is a slim girl. If there were no cancer, she should have been a happy bride. At least for a period of time, rather than waiting to die like this now. How was today? Su Qing asked. The frequency of asking meaning has decreased. I haven't slept in the morning, and my sense of alienation from the world has also weakened. Su Qing listened quietly. Finally, Lu Xiaoting said, in terms of daily life, I hope you can give me some books on oil painting. Su Qing looked at 3 nurses, and one of the female nurses quickly took note. Finally, Su Qing looked at Gu Ran and Chen Ku. Chen Ku said, I'll come this time. Su Qing stepped aside and stood beside Gu Ran, holding her chest in both hands, not like a doctor, but like a peerless beauty disguised as a doctor to take stills. Hello, Chen Ku greeted with a smile, I am the new doctor, Chen Ku. Lu Xiaoting smiled and said, I remember you, were you late this morning? Thanks to your hard work, Chen Ku's smile deepened as she glanced at the oil painting behind Lu Xiaoting. Do you like painting? Did you draw well? Are you studying art? No, the university is in the Japanese department. That's self-study. Yes, when the store doesn't have much business, they use tablets to draw pictures. Store. Chen Ku was curious. Guess what, Lu Xiaoting didn't say directly. Chen Ku pursed her lips and smiled, pondering, a translation agency like Japanese. Japanese is simple, there are too many people who know it. A milk tea shop. No, it's not. Clothing. That's not right either. Chen Ku said, I can't guess. Spicy hot pot. Lu Xiaoting seems to think there is something wrong with people who don't guess spicy hot pot. I prefer eating skewers, Chen Ku said. No wonder my store's business has always been bad. I knew I had opened a skewer shop before, and by the way, next time when the team is treating, I will make skewers for you to eat, Lu Xiaoting smiled. A very good person, there is no fear of death in her. However, whether the business is good or the body is healthy is not related to personality. The world may be magnificent as a result, but it is inevitably infuriating. After chatting for a while, the 6 of them went out, and Su Qing asked Chen Ku to express her opinion. Chen Ku sorted out her wording and said. It doesn't seem like a problem, but it's a bit too positive and sunny. I've seen a depressed patient who appears happy and optimistic on the surface, even to the point of giggling, but thinks about how to commit suicide later. It's important to keep a close eye on Lu Xiaoting. Su Qing nodded. In psychiatric hospitals, doctors and family members must be cautious because patients with mental illness can suddenly commit suicide, no matter how normal they may have behaved in the past moment. 6 people continue to conduct rounds. The housing area has 3 floors and 9 wards, all of which are single rooms. Currently, there are a total of 6 patients living in it. The higher the floor, the better the patient's condition may not necessarily be, but the lower the risk of suicide. On the first floor, there are only experts Zhao Wenjie and spicy hot pot Lu Xiaoting. There are only 2 patients living on the second floor, both of whom are normal today. Speaking of normal, it means that the condition is stable and there is no uncontrollable thinking. One of them is a swimming old man whom Gu Ran has met once, living in 201. According to the records, he is not a water system mage, but a Yugong. Unlike Yugong, who moved mountains, he wanted to tug of war. Using my body to pull out the river water, I am currently practicing hard in the swimming pool. I hope everyone can also learn. Ask him why he did it. He replied, is the continent in the sea? In fact, the continent is also in a tug of war. It is precisely because of the tug of war on the continent that the seawater has been following the earth. And humans naturally come from the ocean. If all humans had learned to tug of war, we could each pull up a sea and use it as a spacecraft for space travel. How does it feel to be somewhat related to gravity? Ask him if he will jump out of the window or commit suicide by electrocution. He said he has no interest in air and electricity at all, and there are too many experts studying air and electricity, so he takes this path. In the early stages, one can only learn without any fun of researching the unknown. After 201, Su Qing explained, increase the dosage of the medicine from half to 1. Yes. The male caregiver responded. He is responsible for the old man, after all, he is the only one who can prevent a man who often swims and works out from committing suicide. 202 is a 57-year-old aunt. The reason for staying at Jinghai is to learn from Jinghai's business model, and she also has the qualifications of a psychologist to enter the psychological shadow. Unfortunately, just like in the old days when parents didn't know how to put braces on children with misaligned teeth, her parents didn't take her for testing and ended up on the path of a real estate tycoon. Don't rush me to be discharged, the real estate tycoon said as soon as he walked in, I have plenty of money, and money in my house is garbage. During the ward round, she didn't answer any questions and instead persuaded the 6 people, I don't want to work hard anymore. I'll tell Auntie, she'll give you better. A nurse poked the male nurse with her arm, indicating that they had a good relationship. The real estate auntie also specifically told Gu Ran, Dr. Gu, compared to these people, auntie gives you another way, which can make your life easier. Gu Ran never knew that he was so handsome. The 2 patients on the 3rd floor are more normal. 301 patients have undergone psychological surgery, and if there is a possibility of cure for mental illness, psychological surgery is the only means. Any other therapy can only be said to be controlled. The patient in 302 is a writer who came to seek shelter and claimed to have a phantom odor. Major hospitals have checked and found no physical problems, but they often smell a foul odor. His treatment requirement is to turn hallucinations into hallucinations because materials can be taken. Thinking that the room was empty anyway, Zhuang Jing took him into custody. No, he was taken into custody. Although the hallucinatory odor was not cured, let alone hallucinations, the author was very satisfied and did not intend to check out. Because this place is full of mental illnesses, these people are natural materials, including those who can see hallucinations. After checking the room, the patients go to have breakfast, and then they will go to the farming area to take care of their own vegetables, feed small animals, or take walks around. Su Qing, Gu Ran, and Chen Ku also went to have breakfast. Gu Ran couldn't help but pay attention to Aunt Broken Finger. Cockroaches and mice were just fine, afraid that she would cut her own finger again. As for hurting others, the likelihood is very low. Generally, if a mentally ill person causes trouble to others, it can lead to a relapse of their mental illness, making them feel like they are useless and deserve it, let alone actively harming others. The reason that truly reassured him to eat here was that Zhuang Jing allowed Aunt Duanji to work in the cafeteria, and he believed in Zhuang Jing's authority. Breakfast is self-service. Gu Ran takes seafood congee, a plate of side dishes, pickled vegetables stir-fried with soybeans, a fried egg, a corn, a banana, and a bottle of milk. Chen Ku also took seafood congee, a bread, a baked mantou with condensed milk, and a cup of coffee. Su Qing eats bread and coffee. Don't you drink coffee? Su Qing asked Gu Ran. I can't sleep while drinking coffee, Gu Ran said. Do you also not drink coffee during exams? Chen Ku couldn't help but ask. No, Gu Ran tried to find seafood by mixing seafood congee with his chopsticks. Chen Ku's small melon seed face was full of envy. Su Qing picked up her coffee and took a sip, bitter from her mouth until the bottom of her heart. To enter a quiet clinic, one must cross a single wooden bridge with 1,000 troops and horses, which requires a long and arduous effort far beyond involution, and coffee is naturally indispensable. Gu Ran refused coffee because he was worried about not being able to sleep. How good is this person's spirit, or is it that they have high intelligence? Su Qing didn't see how high his intelligence was anyway. I was cheated. Gu Ran sighed that there was no seafood in the seafood congee. Chen Ku nodded in agreement. Team leader, Gu Ran looked at Su Qing, I want to reflect the situation. There is no seafood in the seafood congee in the canteen. Chen Ko also stared at Su Qing, hoping that the spring breeze of reform would blow into the cafeteria. Su Qing took a faint bite of the bread and said, "Do you think I haven't reflected? Isn't the clinic owned by the team leader?" Chen Ko instinctively said. "It's mine, but not mine." "No matter who it is," Gu Ran said, "how can there be no seafood in a seafood kanji? How unreasonable. How could that be reasonable?" Su Qing repeated. "How unreasonable. Not convinced?" Su Qing asked again. "Not convinced. Gu Ran is not afraid of her." Su Qing took out her phone and dialed Zhuang Jing's phone number. "Xiao Qing." The dignified and elegant voice sounded slightly tipsy from the phone. Su Qing clicked on the external player and then pushed her phone in front of Gu Ran. At the moment she dialed the number, Gu Ran had already developed a psychological shadow. "Teacher Zhuang Jing," Su Qing said seriously, "Gu Ran has something to report to you." "Oh." On the phone, there was a sound of Zhuang Jing leaning back, her body pressed against a chair. "What's going on?" Su Qing glanced at Gu Ran and gestured for him to go up. Gu Ran glared back with his already burning eyes. If he had learned internal power, he would definitely slap Su Qing into the sea from here, making her clothes wet all over. Chen Ku struggled to hold back her smile, afraid to make a sound, and her face turned red. What should come always comes. Gu Ran looked at Su Qing's phone. "Aunt Jing, I have something to report. There is no seafood in the seafood kanji in the canteen. I wonder if there is something wrong with the canteen and I have deducted the money for purchasing food materials." Su Qing raised her thumb and looked admiring, but she couldn't hide her schadenfreude. Ha! Chen Ku couldn't hold back any longer, and a hint of laughter ran out of her mouth. She quickly covered her mouth with the back of her hand. This question, Zhuang Jing across from me also smiled. "Let Xiao Qing talk to me." "Leader." Gu Ran quickly pushed his phone back. "Xiao Qing, did you ask Gu Ran to reflect on this issue?" Zhuang Jing asked. "Mom," the sound of a pen tapping on the desk came from across. "Working hours." "Teacher Zhuang Jing," Su Qing changed her voice, "I have confirmed multiple times that he insists on reflecting this issue, which has nothing to do with me." "Is it really Xiaoran?" "It's really him." "Well, then I'll have someone check and see." Su Qing's worldview has cracked, and she said, "Teacher Zhuang Jing, when I reflected on it before, you didn't have this attitude. Can't I change my mind? Don't call me if you have nothing to do. Are we very familiar?" "Pop, my mother hung up on my daughter's phone." "Leader, I see you've really reported it before." Gu Ran realized that he didn't understand Su Qing at all. Su Qing's gaze shifted from her phone to Gu Ran and said, "Do you think I'm someone who likes to lie? Even if it's a flower picker, I have to be honest." "What does that mean?" Gu Ran also countered, "I'm sorry, I'm a shallow person who likes to judge people by their appearance. I think you're a type of person who does whatever it takes to achieve your goals." "To you, I am," Su Qing admitted to this judgment. "I can also see that whether it's the desk arrangement, the flower picker, or the phone call just now, it has already proven this point. Don't be so happy. In 5 years, you have enough time to be tormented by a beautiful girl psychologist." "Girls," referring to women aged 12 to 18, group leader, "how old are you this year?" Su Qing looked at Chen Ku and said, "I'm on the 16th this year, and you?" "I'm also 16, Chen Ku replied. "The alliance of beautiful girls has been formed. You are really young." Gu Ran finishes his last mouthful of seafood kanji without seafood. A 20-year-old uncle always talks in a stale manner. Students with the qualification to enter the psychological shadow, if interested in becoming a psychologist, will receive special training starting from junior high school. After graduating from junior high school, one can directly take professional courses and obtain a master's degree equivalent to other majors at the age of 20. Gu Ran and Chen Ku are both 20 years old. Su Qing graduated earlier than the two and entered Jinghai a year earlier. However, she is the same age as the two because she is a genius. Or maybe it was Zhuang Jing who started a small stove for her. I have a question, Chen Ku, the most serious of the three, team leader. Just call me Su Qing when there are no outsiders, Su Qing said. This sentence made Chen Ku, who was just starting out, feel very comfortable. Even Gu Ran felt that people were indeed complex, and even Su Qing had a friendly side. Okay, Su Qing, Chen Ku became familiar with the term. I want to ask, we only went to the residential area today, don't we need to go to the hospital room? My mother, teacher Zhuang Jing, said that we will receive the next seriously ill patient. However, she should be registered for surgery and will be with us for the first time. Su Qing replied. Great. Chen Ku was looking forward to it. Teacher Zhuang Jing has always been my idol, and I want to become an excellent psychologist like her. Zhuang Jing, professor at Haicheng University and vice president of Haicheng Psychological Society. The holder of the profession of silent master, can use 3 types of spiritual monsters. King, Queen, and Knight, the awakener of the spiritual world, blooming heaven. It may sound like some fantasy novel or card game, but in reality, these things are just products of the soul, just like books. Books are magical, although they possess physical entities, they are actually the fruits of the soul. Career cards, monsters, and the spiritual world are also spiritual fruits, but can only be touched and used in the spiritual world, and have no impact on the real world. The conditions for using these spiritual fruits are also very strict, and mental strength must be sufficient. Similar to reading a good book, frequently using the knowledge in it without being influenced by the book's ideas. Books may be able to do it, but the fruit of the soul, once used for a long time, will be affected to some extent. The stronger the fruit, the greater the power of thought, and the greater the aftermath. Psychologists are also needed in most cases. In the fruit of the soul, profession cards, and monsters randomly appear in anyone's heart, and only psychologists can use them. Psychologists can only enter the hearts of patients with psychological shadows. While eliminating psychological shadows, they occasionally discover these fruits in their hearts and pick them away, which is the main source of spiritual fruits. The harvested fruits can only be preserved in the spiritual world, which is also one of the basic conditions for opening a clinic. And in the spiritual world, anyone can awaken, but only by appearing in a psychologist can they be entered. The spiritual world is essentially the same as the psychological shadow, but the former is full of energy, and at the age of 80, one is still as energetic as 20.1, while the latter is self-destructive and even suicidal. Those who only sleep for 4 hours a day and are still energetic, steadfast in their work, and have a positive and optimistic life are almost all people with a spiritual world. Zhuang Jing is the top psychologist who awakened the spiritual world. In her spiritual world, Raging Paradise, there are 20.1 career cards and 30.6 monsters. Only by obtaining a professional card can one truly become a psychologist and qualify for surgery. Hurry up and eat, Su Qing said. I know you're looking forward to it. After finishing, I'll take you to choose a career card. Gu Ran and Chen Ku are really looking forward to it. By the way, this book is for daily use and there will be no dungeons or serious battles. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Today's learning object is 70.2 years old and still eating candy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Today's learning object is an old lady who wants to eat tomatoes on sticks at the age of 72. After finishing their meal, the three of them immediately returned to the office building and arrived at Zhuang Jing's office. I explained it in advance, but the secretary didn't stop me and went straight in. Teacher Zhuang Jing, the two beautiful girls shouted. Aunt Jing, Gu Ran greeted. Zhuang Jing, who was flipping through the materials, looked up like the first scene in a movie where the first beauty from 20 years ago reappeared in the martial arts world, so beautiful that it was indescribable. Zhuang Jing understood their urgent feelings and smiled before putting down the information in her hand. She stood up and said, "Come with me." Whether entering the psychological shadow or the spiritual world, one needs silence. The entire fourth floor belongs to tranquility. Apart from the secretariat, such a large space cannot be entirely an office, with bedrooms, a quiet room, and a gym. 4 people arrived at the quiet room, where there were 6 beds. "Lie down, Shaoqing, keep an eye on us and wake us up if you have something to do." Zhuang Jing sat down on the bed first, combing her hair to prevent her hair from getting messy while lying down. Chen Ku was also tidying up her hair next to Zhuang Jing. Men and women are different. There is a bed between Gu Ran and Chen Ku. He was the last to go to bed, but the first to lie down. After a brief moment of idleness, he accidentally met Su Qing standing there, and Su Qing gave him a slight smile. "Although it looks good, it doesn't feel good. You wouldn't paint a turtle on my face while I'm asleep, would you?" Gu Ran warned her with his eyes. Su Qing pursed her lips and nodded with a smile. Gu Ran felt an urge to get up and use force to argue with her. "Are you all ready?" Zhuang Jing asked. Gu Ran instinctively looked over and wanted to answer, but Chen Ku's small mountain couldn't stop the peaceful mountain. The big and small mountains now appear incredibly soft, forming a stunning curve that is heart-wrenching. The small mountain slowly rises, blocking the big mountain. At first glance, it turned out that Chen Ku was taking deep breaths. Bang! A slight impact sounded in the quiet room. Zhuang Jing, who had already closed her eyes and was ready to fall asleep, asked, "What noise?" "Gu Ran doesn't close his eyes, I'm reminding him." Su Qing stared at Gu Ran with a smile in her eyes. Gu Ran tightly closed his eyes. She kicked Gu Ran's bed just now. As a professional and talented psychological counselor, falling asleep was as simple as an actor shedding tears, and the 3 of them quickly fell asleep. A person with the qualification of a psychologist must have a lucid dream when sleeping, which is also one of the tests to determine whether they have the qualifications. Although it is a lucid dream, it is no different from ordinary people dreaming. As long as you don't immediately write it down when you wake up in the morning, you will forget the time to brush your teeth. Today, unlike usual, Zhuang Jing, who possesses a spiritual world, sleeps in the same room, and the psychologist automatically enters the spiritual world. Spiritual world blooming heaven. A low mountain, with flowers all over the slope and not even a single weed. There is no sun, but the sky is blue. Occasionally, a faint white cloud drifts by, as if planning to disappear from everyone's eyes in a day. Gu Ran woke up on such a hillside. He sat up, his hands propped up on the ground with a strong tactile sensation, and his nose was filled with an incredibly authentic fragrance of flowers, occasionally blowing a refreshing breeze. Chen Ku was also on the side, staring at the scenery with fascination. The 2 of them couldn't even express their admiration for being truly beautiful or so powerful, and were completely obsessed. The dreams they encountered in the past were all absurd, like assault rifles, all sudden. One moment they were still eating, and the next moment they inexplicably received news of a family debt of 10 billion. Dreams are so sudden, and if diagnosed with dreams, all humans are mentally ill, like assault rifles. The spiritual world is different, stable, warm, and unchanging, with a faint joy. That's why people with a spiritual world only need to sleep for 4 hours a day. People all think so, but in fact it is not because of the spiritual world that one is full of energy, but because of energy that one can have a spiritual world. It doesn't mean that energetic people will always have a spiritual world. In contrast, individuals with a positive and upward personality, who face pain, are not afraid of it, and have a life attitude of allowing pain, are more likely to awaken their spiritual world. But it's difficult. There are many optimistic and cheerful people in the crowd, but this is just their mask, and even their means of survival. Some people are optimistic and cheerful, without experiencing pain, with a peach garden-style optimism, there are also some people who are optimistic and cheerful, which is the result of compromise. Having a simple meal every day is good for good health. But is this a reconciliation with life, or is it a compromise with effort? Or even no effort towards life after that? People who hold the spiritual world like Zhuang Jing will inevitably experience pain but still have hope for life, knowing clearly what they need and how to obtain it. This is a transcendent realm of life. It is not a myth, everyone can achieve it, but it is as untouchable as a myth. Find it yourself. Zhuang Jing also appeared on the hillside covered in flowers. The fruits are among these flowers. She didn't specify which career cards there were. If you find it, you will naturally introduce it, but if you don't find it, it's useless to say it. It's like finding a 4-leaf clover among 3-leaf clovers. From Chen Ku's tone and expression, she doesn't dislike this process. You can all come here for an hour after the daily rounds, Zhuang Jing said. This is written in the contract and belongs to her obligation. The two of them thanked Zhuang Jing and searched on the hillside, finding each flower one by one without any shortcut. Tired and looking up, the mountain slope was not big, but the three of them dispersed and seemed to be alone. After an unknown amount of time, Gu Ran was walking on his knees like a pilgrim among the flowers when he suddenly heard the sound of armor colliding. Following the sound, I saw a set of armor walking among the flowers. The armor was in the shape of a horse, but the interior was hollow. The armor is very realistic, and the petals are trampled deep into the mud, or they may fly up. Is it the knight's warhorse? Chen Ku, who had not seen anyone before, suddenly appeared and was not far from Gu Ran, startling him. There are 30.6 types of monsters in the spiritual world, including 3 that are completely controlled and dominated by Zhuang Jing, and the knight is one of the 3. Monsters, when can we have them? Chen Ku yearned. Compared to the professional card, the power of the monster is more extreme. Using a book as a metaphor, it is a highly infectious, tempting, and practical book. Powerful and dangerous. The warhorse appeared alone in front of him, clearly indicating that Zhuang Jing was training his monster. If the warhorse could detach from the knight, it could fully serve as a foot power. Gu Ran glanced at it and continued to search. Chen Ku looked at him and couldn't help but chuckle. Perhaps tired, Gu Ran lay on his side among the flowers. After checking the flowers in front of him, he rolled around. Somehow, it reminded her of the story of Xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, tied around her neck. His laziness was really similar. An hour later, both of them withdrew from the spiritual world without any gain. In the quiet room, the two slowly woke up with tired expressions, and entering the spiritual world or psychological shadows was extremely exhausting. If you don't have a career card, after entering the psychological shadow, not to mention eliminating the illness, just walking can tire them to death. It's like going out to sea for fishing, without a boat or a fishing rod. Only in extremely lucky situations can one catch fish with bare hands and eliminate illnesses. And the professional card refers to the boat and fishing rod. Monsters are even more powerful, like a fish that obeys orders. When going out to sea to catch a fish, it can even be a whale or a shark. What is the concept of this? A good person will refer to a psychologist who holds a monster as a Pokémon master. That is a dream that Gu Ran has never given up on. Failed. Su Qing, who was leaning against the wall, turned off her phone and looked up. Chen Ku replied. Don't take it to heart. There are currently 6 people in the clinic, and only Tong Ling has found the career card, for the first time. It's not that the shorter the time, the stronger the career card. Well, thank you. Chen Ku thinks that Su Qing is the perfect goddess, with an outstanding family background, beautiful appearance, and a good person. She is also a psychologist. The perfect goddess looked at Gu Ran and said, "You have disappointed me." Gu Ran. Chen Ku also said. Su Qing said, I praised you so much in front of teacher Jing, but you didn't show any stunning performance. Do you know the consequences of betraying my sincerity? She stood looking down at him with a cold expression and a questioning tone. Without waiting for Gu Ran's answer, Su Qing said, "Tonight we will have a dinner together, and your welcome party will be your treat." Gu Ran added insult to injury, whether it was his spirit or his wallet. However, he doesn't have a lot of money and can't buy a car, a house, or marry a wife in Haicheng, but he still has a small amount of money for treating guests to meals. "Okay, I'll take it," he said. "Does Su Qing care about this meal?" "Don't lose heart," she comforted. "My expectations for you are still the same. Even if you fail multiple times, I still believe in you." She cares about more food. "And every time I disappoint you, I have to treat you to dinner, right?" Gu Ran said. Su Qing, who had been leaning against the wall all along, finally stood straight and applauded with admiration on her face. Gu Ran's fist hardened. "All right," Jing, who had her hair rolled up again, scolded with a smile. "Don't worry, this is our group's business," Su Qing said. "I don't care, but I remember you were on duty tonight," Jing said. After a pause, Su Qing said to Gu Ran, "Let's have a dinner tomorrow night." Tomorrow is Friday, and Chen Ku immediately remembered that she and Fei Xiaoxiao had arranged to go out and explore Haicheng tomorrow night. But Su Qing is the boss. "Let's change it to tonight. If we set 10 alarms tomorrow morning, we can always wake up, right?" On duty. Gu Ran became interested. "Can I stay together?" "I'm fine when I go back, I want to learn more." "Good child," Su Qing nodded with satisfaction. Even though she claimed to be a 16-year-old beautiful girl, she looked like a big sister. Chen Ku's little fist has also hardened. It's only her first day at work, so why did she become embroiled? "Me too." She pretended to be happy and eager to learn. "Sometimes even if you don't like it, you still have to endure it, that's life. The matter of exploring Haicheng can only be left on Saturday. They're all good kids." Jing adjusted her hair and regained the composure and elegance of a female professor. "There are quite a few unexpected situations for mental patients. Since you're a psychologist, you have to take responsibility, but don't treat duty as a hard job. You two beautiful women and a handsome guy are chatting in the office, and time will pass." She suddenly remembered something and smiled at Gu Ran and Chen Ku, saying, "Jinghai doesn't prohibit office romance." A matching tone. Chen Ku wanted to say something, but Gu Ran spoke first. "Aunt Jing, Chen Ku has a boyfriend now," he explained. "Is that right?" Jing paused for a moment. Chen Ku was a bit shy. "That's it." Jing pondered, "Do you need me to transfer you to a group and switch with Wei Hong? This group is all female doctors." "Ah. Why?" Chen Ku was puzzled. "You're beautiful and handsome, just in case." Chen Ku felt both amused and embarrassed about the topic. She hooked her broken hair behind her ear and shyly whispered, "Teacher Zhuang, no need, a group of experienced senior brothers and sisters. I can't keep up with them when I go, so it's better to work with Gu Ran and make progress slowly." Jing didn't mind either, just said, "Don't blame me for any trouble in the future." No. Chen Ku hurriedly said. "I don't know if I won't break up or if I won't blame Jing's personnel arrangement for causing trouble." Finally, Jing mentioned a few words. "There is actually no secret about the soul world. If there is any, it is to keep a young mind. You can learn from the patients. The 72-year-old woman also likes to eat tomatoes on sticks. If she can't eat them, she will ignore her 50-year-old son. Life is only once, and life is short. Use all your strength to live, don't eat the pain you can't bear, and give up if you can't bear it. If you have any confusion within 5 years, you can come to me. I am your psychologist." "Thank you, Aunt Jing, Teacher Zhuang." Both of them thanked each other at the same time. Zhuang Jing had many things to do. Besides the clinic, there were also courses at Haicheng University, meetings of the Psychological Society, and so on. The three of them didn't dare to disturb him much and returned to their own office. Returning to the office, Su Qing said to the two of them, "If nothing unexpected happens, you will spend your entire life in this small room." "It's okay," Gu Ran was very optimistic. "After death, I will scatter my ashes into the sea. It's okay to go to fewer places while alive." Both of them looked at him. "You're so optimistic," Chen Ku said. "I want to have my own spiritual world someday." Gu Ran sat on his office chair. The chair is very advanced, ergonomic and comfortable. "Scatter the ashes further away, I still plan to swim in the sea." Su Qing sat down and casually picked up a book called Dialogue Techniques with Idiots. Gu Ran's feet gently exerted force, and his body half turned over. "This worry is completely unnecessary. When I became ashes, even if you didn't die, you were too old to swim. I am more optimistic than you." Su Qing has already started watching Dialogue Techniques with Idiots without looking up. "When you turn to dust, I still have 75 years to live." Chen Ku kindly reminded, "If a person can live for 100 years, that is to say, you will die after completing a 5-year contract." Hello. Before Gu Ran could finish speaking, Su Qing had already used her feet to help him turn the chair under the table and sat him down obediently. The foolish appearance of being forced to turn around made Chen Ku couldn't help but laugh. To avoid embarrassment for Gu Ran, she changed the topic while brewing coffee on the tea table and said, "Leader." "Don't call me team leader." Su Qing's gaze remained on the book. "If you call me team leader, I will always pay attention to the identity of my team leader. I am only 20 years old and don't want to become as old-fashioned as the team leader. But for patients, being more dignified can give them confidence, right?" Su Qing lifted her head and kicked Gu Ran's chair. Her legs were really long, and the distance between the two was not short. "What do you think?" He clearly said he didn't want the old-fashioned attitude of the team leader, but now he showed the attitude of the team leader bullying team members. Mental patients don't have the heart to care about whether the doctor is young or what their personality is, right? Gu Ran pondered and spoke, "It may be useful for the patient's family, but a positive and optimistic doctor should not be rejected by the family." Chen Ku, who was brewing tea, nodded thoughtfully. During the previous rounds, she instinctively appeared reliable. But as Gu Ran said, a child with autism who refuses to communicate, a depressed woman who only wants to commit suicide, and a schizophrenic patient who believes that the doctor is the murderer will not pay attention to whether the doctor is stable. A youthful mindset may be more helpful for the patient's condition. "Unfortunately, we missed one meal," sighed Su Qing. This means that Gu Ran's answer did not disappoint her. Despite gaining recognition, Gu Ran's psychological shadow continued to expand. Chen Ku gave tea to Gu Ran and coffee to Su Qing, and both of them said thank you. "Su Qing, what are we going to do next?" Chen Ku asked. "You can go to housing areas, farming areas, animal areas, and sports centers, provided that the purpose of going there is to communicate with patients. Besides, you have to stay in the office, you can look at your files, feel free to play on your phone, and read idle books. This is not a rule, but if you happen to be out of the office, the patient you are in charge of is about to commit suicide, the nurse doesn't find you, or you happen to arrive late, teacher Zhuang Jing will let you know her cruel side. If your patient happens to have successfully committed suicide, congratulations, you can just scatter the ashes in the sea. Of course, it's not as serious as directly scattering ashes, but leaving without permission and making it difficult for nurses to find anyone is not acceptable, whether it's work or character. 3 people are all staying in the office. Su Qing reads books, while Gu Ran and Chen Ku read archives. There is extremely precious information here. The doctor's diary. Although the establishment of Jinghai Psychological Sanatorium is not long, Zhuang Jing is remarkable, and her notes can be regarded as treasures. It contains the complete process of treating patients, what kind of symptoms, what kind of medication was used, and what treatment was adopted. Even doctors and patients have every word and action, covering everything in detail. As for the process of entering psychological shadows and eliminating illnesses, it is even more like an adventure novel, and anyone can read it with relish. Private Diary. On August 2nd, Sunny, entering the spiritual world for the first time. I found that women's breasts have magic, and I think they can be used as a therapy for psychotherapy. I will start researching them as soon as I have a girlfriend, marked as the focus here. Doctor's Diary. For the first time entering the spiritual world, with flowers scattered all over the mountains, searching for career cards in the flowers, my colleague said it was like searching for a four-leaf clover in a clover. Clover represents happiness, while clover represents luck. I want every mentally ill person to plant clover in their heart, and for this, I need the power of luck. Note. Teacher Zhuang Jing's quote. Life is short, try your best to live. Don't eat the pain you can't bear, and give up if you can't bear it. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. I Can Protect You, and She. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. I Can Protect You, and She. Gu Ran put down common medications in psychiatry, stood up and moved his waist. Chen Ku was gone, and Su Qing was still watching, idiot. He walked to the window and looked down the mountain, where the clear sky and the sea came into view. The plane swept through the deep blue sky, pulling out straight, snow-white trajectory clouds. The sea was partially covered by trees on land, and the beach was out of sight. Suddenly, a small spot emerged from the trees, whether it was a water motorcycle or a yacht. After relaxing his eyes for a while, Gu Ran walked back to his desk and took a teacup to the tea table to fetch water. The installed direct drinking machine, although it is a 28-degree summer, Gu Ran still drinks warm water at 55 degrees. The water splashed against the disposable cup, and Gu Ran thought to himself, go buy a cup after work. Instead, he thought of being on duty tonight and having a dinner together tomorrow night, so he had to wait until Saturday. After filling 2/3 of the water, Gu Ran took a sip and asked Su Qing, when will we have our first patient? Curse others for mental illness. Su Qing flipped the book back a page. I prefer patients' families to pay attention to their condition and seek medical attention as soon as possible, rather than suffering from mental illness. Su Qing chuckled lightly, as no one could match the brightness. She put down the book, picked up the cup and walked over. Gu Ran stepped aside. Gu Ran noticed that the cup she was drinking coffee from was not a disposable cup given to her by Chen Ku. During his addiction to archives and the doctor's diary, she had already replaced it with her own cup. Su Qing stood in front of him, calmly fetching water from a cup. The collar of her white coat was pressed against her slender and fair neck, as noble and elegant as a red-crowned crane. Su Qing turned off the drinking machine, and Gu Ran handed her disposable water glass to her mouth and took a sip. Do you want any snacks? Su Qing asked. She opened a drawer full of small packaged loose snacks. Gu Ran doesn't like to eat snacks, but when he sees Wang Zai's small mantou, he wants to recall his childhood feelings. Wang Zai's small mantou, he said. Su Qing took a packet of Wang Zai's small mantou, tore them open, looked up at him and said, hands. Gu Ran was puzzled. Su Qing took his left hand directly and poured Wang Zai's small mantou into his hand, saying, I want to eat too, but too much snacks is bad for my health. What effect can a bag of Wang Zai's small mantou have? Gu Ran, as a doctor, doesn't believe it. This cabinet of snacks, as well as snacks for a lifetime, I want to eat them all. So many snacks, does half of them have any impact? I can't help you eat half of your life's snacks, can I? Gu Ran smiled. Can't you? You need to have confidence in your career prospects and believe that you can stay in Jinghai and work for me for the rest of your life. The opening of the package was not big, and mantu was difficult to pour out. The premise is that I haven't died in 5 years and my ashes haven't been scattered in the sea. Take revenge. Su Qing smiled and looked up at him, like a clear spring in the shade of summer trees. A small bag of Wang Zai's small mantu was poured into Gu Ran's hands, and Su Qing kept a third of it herself. When you gain weight, I know I should stop snacking. Su Qing was very satisfied with this allocation. Evil. Gu Ran clapped his palm in his mouth and killed all Wang Zai's small mantu. Su Qing looked at him and suddenly said, "De Lang, don't take your medicine so quickly." Gu Ran's face changed. No spraying. Su Qing, who was right in front of him, her face turned faster than him. Gu Ran didn't spray, there was a desire to spray, but it was just a tiny bit that could be suppressed. After confirming that he wouldn't spray, Su Qing laughed happily and praised, "De Lang is really good." She held a small mantu of Wang Zai with her fingertips and handed it over. "Come, reward. Is this office bullying? Be careful, I'll sue you in court." Gu Ran refused. In front of the judge, Su Qing forced me to eat Wang Zai's small mantu. Su Qing asked in reply. Gu Ran resolutely returned to his workstation. Ha ha ha! Su Qing smiled and put the Wang Zai small mantu into her mouth, smiling in her eyes, like the sun rippling in the spring. The two continued to review the files. After a while, Gu Ran's shoulder was patted by Su Qing, who passed by, and he said, "Let's eat." Gu Ran looked up, and Chen Ku didn't know when she would return. Okay. He put down his book. 3 people arrived at the cafeteria, and several patients were also dining, along with family members. Ah, cool. Lu Xiaoting, a cancer patient with depression, waved her hand voluntarily. Chen Ku said to the other 2, "Sorry, I'll go eat with her." Together. Gu Ran suggested. Su Qing had no choice but to keep up. 3 doctors picked out the dishes and sat at a table with Lu Xiaoting. The tables and chairs in the cafeteria were not the same as those in school, but rather a formal round dining table. The spoon used by Lu Xiaoting. Even the stinky writer on the 3rd floor of the residential area is not allowed to use chopsticks. Gu Ran calmly observed that Lu Xiaoting was not very active in eating. Even someone like Su Qing, who controlled her diet, took 3 bites before she could barely take one. Lack of appetite is one of the manifestations of depression. When severe, not only psychologically but also physically, throat and chest pain may occur due to swallowing. True depression is not what ordinary people think of as affectation. The handsome doctor's eyes are so scary. Lu Xiaoting, who was chatting with Chen Ku, suddenly smiled and said. Chen Ku quickly glanced at Gu Ran, cleared her throat, and reminded with a hint, visiting a female patient requires a nurse to accompany her. Su Qing unexpectedly didn't say anything to Gu Ran, but she said to Lu Xiaoting, "It's not illegal to kill someone with mental illness." Gu Ran. Sorry, he said apologetically to Lu Xiaoting. You're not looking at me with a beautiful woman's gaze, you're observing a patient. I won't forgive you. When I go back, I'll hide in bed and cry for an hour. Lu Xiaoting poked the rice with a spoon, not jokingly. Being able to come to the cafeteria for a meal proves that she won't suddenly explode, otherwise she might be lying on the ground crying now. Wait, Xiaoting, how about we punish him for telling a joke? Chen Ku smiled, as if she didn't care at all about Lu Xiaoting's serious tone. Lu Xiaoting happily said, okay. Su Qing was eating more and more with relish, her eyes curved like the moon, waiting for a joke. She can definitely have a spiritual world, because anything can only make her happy. Gu Ran. Speak up, Chen Ku smiled. I thought about it, but all that came out of my mind were yellow jokes, Gu Ran said. All 3 of them laughed. Lu Xiaoting had no shame at all, but instead had some abnormal excitement. Tell me, even a dirty joke is fine. Gu Ran is really speechless this time. He explained, actually, what I just said was just a joke. Ah. Lu Xiaoting was stunned. Chen Ku covered her mouth and smiled. Su Qing stopped eating and looked dizzy, holding her forehead and smiling as she lowered her head. Lu Xiaoting calmed down and even said decisively on the battlefield, I want to listen to jokes. I'm sick. Lu Xiaoting initially developed symptoms in the morning, and the closer she got to the night, the better her mental state improved. After sunset, she was basically no different from the average person. After treatment, the condition has improved, but the outbreak time is random, for example, at noon. The smile on Chen Ku's face immediately turned into worry. Su Qing also restrained her smile, but she didn't really care. And in a place that everyone couldn't see, the nurses were ready. If it weren't for the doctor, they would have gathered around to comfort them long ago. Lu Xiaoting is like a baby, praised by nurses for everything she does. Almost all mental patients receive this treatment. In fact, during the process of her illness, Gu Ran did nothing. At first glance, it was also very vague, but Lu Xiaoting's gaze towards the outside world was no longer as keen as before. Using the diary of a madman to describe her is not an exaggeration, anyone who looks at her thinks that the other person is sympathizing with them. Let me think. Gu Ren tried hard to recall the online joke. Let me tell you something, Lu Xiaoting suddenly said. All right. Chen Ku responded with an expectant expression. Lu Xiaoting said, when I was young, I thought I could save the world when I grew up, but when I grew up, I realized that the whole world couldn't save me. Ha. Chen Ku forced herself to laugh. Su Qing applauded. Gu Ren felt that she was applauding Chen Ku's efforts. Su Qing looked at him with her eyes full of pressure. Under heavy pressure, Gu Ren also applauded. Can you laugh at such a cold joke? Lu Xiaoting found it amusing. Chen Ku quickly said, everyone has a different point of laughter. Some people think it's funny, while others don't feel it at all. It has something to do with IQ, Gu Ran coaxed her. If International Children's Day is a holiday based on IQ, all three of us will have a holiday. I don't have it, Su Qing refused. Chen Ku was hard to say, with a faint refusal in her smile. Ha. Lu Xiaoting burst out laughing, covering her abdomen. Oh, my stomach hurts. Su Qing looked admiring at Gu Ran and said, you still have a talent for telling jokes. Hee. Actually, both of them are just cooperating with him. After laughing, Lu Xiaoting's appetite increased slightly. She asked Su Qing, Dr. Su, when will you be going out next time? I'll make skewers for you to eat. Let me ask later and let Chen Ku tell you, Su Qing said, but if you want to go out, you also need to pass the medical examination. Lu Xiaoting attaches great importance to this qualification for going out. And even though she can be picked up by her family, isn't it easy for her to go out when she gets home? My family will definitely accompany me. But she would rather stay in Jinghai. According to Gu Ran's doctor's diary, this situation is due to Lu Xiaoting's disappointment with the outside world and her unwillingness to cause trouble for her family. After eating, there was a lunch break and the three of them took a walk in Jinghai. Su Qing took them to the farming and animal areas. There are many vegetables in the farming area, which are vibrant. Every patient who comes in will receive a piece of land, even if they want to grow what they want. The potatoes grown by Lu Xiaoting. She said she likes to eat potatoes and also enjoys the moment when she pulls out the fruitful potatoes. It was really dangerous just now. Gu Ran walked between the fields, feeling lingering fear. Do you still feel idle and relaxed? Su Qing asked with a smile, the patient is the first party. If they get angry, we have to accompany them, they are happy and want to talk to you. Whether you were beaten or angry before, you have to smile. Just like the emperor and his palace maids and eunuchs. Don't think I don't know you're whispering that I'm a eunuch, Gu Ran said. You don't even have to take a vacation on June 1st, Su Qing said, carrying her hands behind her and pacing through the lush vegetables, occasionally fingering fruits and vegetables. Take a break and prepare to return to the office. Chen Ku couldn't rest assured of Lu Xiaoting and went to the residential area. In fact, female doctors also need nurses to accompany female patients, but the rules are not as strict as male doctors, so there is no nurse around her at this time. Entering the door, Lu Xiaoting sat by the window, seemingly ready to draw, but she had not started yet. When I turned around and saw Chen Ku, her face turned slightly red. Just now in the cafeteria. Chen Ku smiled, knowing that she had re-established her judgment and regained her sanity. Therefore, at this moment, Lu Xiaoting's sense of shame is bursting. Chen Ku walked up and picked up Lu Xiaoting's chin with her fingers like a hooligan. Come, tell me a joke, she said. Lu Xiaoting's face suddenly turned red, and she was so anxious that her hair was about to explode. After a while of arguing, she said to Chen Ku, can you call Gu Ran over? I want to apologize to him in person. It's possible, but you're so shy. Can you apologize properly? Chen Ku asked with a smile. Don't underestimate me, Lu Xiaoting said. When a person has no tomorrow, her frankness towards life can exceed anyone's imagination. Since you requested it, I can tell him that it's uncertain whether he will come or not. Chen Ku tried to make herself indifferent. You tell him that his appearance is good for my condition. You're being too frank. But, after all, you're a handsome guy, you can understand. You also enjoy the happiness along with it. Good sisters enjoy the happiness together. Chen Ku is almost laughing to death. After returning, she first asked Su Qing, how long can Xiaoting live? It's unbelievable that the already quiet office has become even quieter. Is there anything quieter than silence? This may be the tranquility of the spiritual world. Su Qing put down the file in her hand and looked at Chen Ku, saying, she has stopped using anti-cancer drugs very much. If she is lucky, she can still live until September, unfortunately. Chen Ku felt her chest being blocked. My eyes were sore, and tears suddenly blurred the world. But she didn't shed tears, she was still a bit incredulous and couldn't accept this fact. I originally thought there would be at least 1 year, even half a year, but I didn't expect even a month to be a luxury. No wonder she cares so much about the next outing and is so frank. I advise you not to invest too much emotion, Su Qing sighed slightly. Besides, most of your emotions are sympathy and pity. Such emotions will only worsen her depression and worsen her condition faster. Chen Ku took a soft sniff. She didn't shed tears, just her voice became a bit hoarse. I understand. Unfortunately, you're still so young, Gu Ran sighed. For him, saying sadness is not enough, after all, he has only seen 2 sides, but it is inevitable to feel emotional. By the way, Su Qing said to Gu Ran, you are not allowed to appear in front of Lu Xiaoting in the future. Firstly, you have a criminal record that stimulates her today. Secondly, she paused for a moment. Don't continue to pour your emotions into someone who is destined to die. While you are still unfamiliar, cut off contact as soon as possible. Jinghai's care for Lu Xiaoting is enough with a nurse and Chen Ku. She looked at Chen Ku again and said, even you, I think it's best to reduce contact, but it's up to you to decide. We are already friends, Chen Ku didn't want to. But you are also doctors and patients, Su Qing's tone intensified. If your presence worsens Lu Xiaoting's condition, I will prohibit your contact. I understand. Su Qing looked at her for a second, her tone softened, and she whispered, go to the bathroom and wash your face. Chen Ku instinctively wiped the corner of her eye, apologized, and turned around to leave the office. Gu Ranjing sighed in his heart, as the back collar was pulled back by someone and his whole body was suddenly pulled back, almost falling. What are you doing? He was a bit scared. I told you not to come into contact with Lu Xiaoting again, did you hear me? Su Qing warned coldly in his ear. Got it. Gu Ren broke free and tidied up his collar. I know you're not indifferent, you're kind-hearted. I don't want to taste the pain of losing friends myself. I'm not a fool. Su Qing's cold and delicate face melted like early snow. She smiled and said, if you come into contact with her, you may not only taste the pain of losing friends, but perhaps there is also love. Stop it. It's not just about love. Although Lu Xiaoting is pitiful, she is undoubtedly a mentally ill person. If she really wants to fall in love with you, she might go crazy and pull you to die. Hiding a stone or a tile, and wiping your neck when you're not paying attention. So serious. Su Qing stood up and found a file for him from the bookshelf. Gu Ren flipped through it and found that there were records of mental patients harming doctors and nurses, and even those who almost died as a result. Rows by rows, photos of wounds, blood flowing from the head, terrifying dental marks, scratches. In fact, many textbooks and teachers have mentioned in psychological courses that when a patient approaches them, they should pay attention to their gaze and run quickly. Su Qing stood at the table, looking down at him. She spoke calmly and said, with Chen Ku around, my mother can't take care of you too much until you perform well. We should treat you equally. But she also specifically reminded me to take good care of you, saying that you are her half-son, and I cannot let you die, which will affect the already poor mother-daughter relationship. Gu Ren raised his head. Where's Chen Ku? He asked. What should Chen Ku do? She's also very dangerous, by Lu Xiaoting's side. Su Qing thought for a moment and said, find a way to waste her time and make her less likely to go to the hospital room. It would be best to have a mentally ill person. If we need to gather information and ask questions, we naturally won't have time to cultivate friendship with Lu Xiaoting. Chen Ku is right outside the door. She just hurriedly wiped the corners of her eyes when she went to the bathroom, rushed back, and then went to the ward when she accidentally heard the conversation between the two. She put her hands in her white coat pocket and leaned weakly against the wall. My heart is not only filled with sympathy for Lu Xiaoting, but also with helplessness towards the impermanence of life. It's so difficult. She remembered Zhuang Jing's words and gave up on relationships she couldn't bear. It was really difficult to do this. As a psychologist, she felt immature, but also felt the camaraderie between colleagues for Gu Ran's words. Like blood ties, they are colleagues who have to spend 5 years together day and night, no matter what. I have a suggestion. Gu Ran's voice came from the office. Chen Ku couldn't help but perk up her ears when she heard the word suggestion. When the patient comes to visit, it's better for the two of us to follow along when Chen Ku visits Lu Xiaoting. We can also waste her time. Oh. Su Qing chuckled, seeming to find the proposal naive, with a hint of being moved by innocence. What should Lu Xiaoting do if she wants to kill someone? I can protect you. I didn't hear Su Qing's answer. Gu Ren quickly added, of course, we also protect Chen Ku. Is that all you have? Oh. Gu Ren learned Su Qing's contemptuous smile. I'm a type with flesh and clothes, okay. Then take off your pants and show me. I feel like I'm already lustful enough, you're even more lustful than me. I just want to see your thighs. You're not even taking off your underwear, are you? Or do you want to continue the topic of whether your buttocks have fur? Shut up. Chen Ku is coming back. Private Diary. On August 2nd, sunny, life is unpredictable, cherish time, and today, quit lust. Doctor's Diary. Should psychologists interact with patients with an objective and neutral attitude, or become close friends? Becoming friends goes against the guidelines of a psychologist. Whether it's money or friendship, doctors cannot give patients. Guiding patients to understand what they need and how to obtain it is the only thing that doctors should do. But who can achieve absolute objectivity and neutrality? I am very confused. I hope to find my own answer in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Peeping syndrome. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 8. Peeping in syndrome. Chen Ku rubbed her eyes lightly, took a deep breath, and pushed the door into the office. Su Qing was watching, idiot, while Gu Ran flipped through the archives, humming a song by Li Zongsheng. I'm going to the ward to take a look. Chen Ku felt a bit uneasy. Su Qing responded. Me too. Gu Ran closed the file and said, I've been reading the file all morning. I'll go to the ward and try out the patient. Then, he turned around and said the lines that all three of them knew he was going to say. Leader, please escort me. According to the script, Su Qing sighed and also put down the file. Are you a baby who can't do without mom, baby? Well, the lines are not quite the same as planned. To be precise, they are completely different, but the meaning is similar. Two people stood up. That. Chen Ku spoke out first. Su Qing and Gu Ran both looked at her. Chen Ku bit her lower lip and raised her right hand slightly like a female college student. I'm with you all. Since she heard the conversation between the two, she couldn't pretend to be unaware and accept their kindness, allowing them to accompany her and pour their emotions into the person destined to leave. She decided to wander between different patients with the two and no longer pay too much attention to Lu Xiaoting. This is for Gu Ran and Su Qing, as well as a form of protection for Lu Xiaoting. If they stay for a long time, she will inevitably show sympathy and stimulate her spirit. At the same time, it is also a form of protection for herself. Su Qing naturally had no objection. I didn't see that you're so competitive. Gu Ran looked at Chen Ku, dressed slightly familiar but petite, surprisingly so competitive. I don't know who took the initiative to suggest being on duty at night, but I haven't mentioned you yet, Chen Ku couldn't help but say. This seemingly resentful statement, but representing a gradually closer relationship, stunned Gu Ran for a moment. Are you really so handsome? Even Chen Ku, who has a boyfriend, has become so close to him in just 2 days. And Chen Ku thought that Gu Ran suspected that she had overheard their conversation outside the door. She lifted her sideburns behind her ears, revealing the charm of a little woman. Let's go, let's go. The three of them had just walked out of the office and were still in the hallway when logistics staff arrived and brought their work cards. Before reporting to Jinghai, they had already sent 2-inch photos online. The two of them learned from Su Qing and placed their work cards in the chest pockets of their white coats, giving them a sense of formal ritual of becoming social animals. Do you have a car? The logistics staff asked. If so, give me the license plate and I will input it into the system so that I can park without paying. Neither of them has a car. With contact, my ID in the clinic group is Su Fu. The logistics staff explained and nodded respectfully at Su Qing, showing some restraint before leaving. Perhaps the work permit should have been picked up by the two themselves, but it was only because Su Qing was there that the other party delivered the goods to their doorstep. You have a high status in Jinghai, Gu Ran said. It's not that high, at least I can't let you learn to bark like a dog. Your expectations for Jinghai are too high. Even if Aunt Jinghai retires and you become the director, you cannot let me learn to bark like a dog unless you are lying in a hospital bed. Su Qing didn't say anything, she just carried the side effects of the medication. Risperidone. Sexual apathy and difficulty in getting up, chlorpromazine hydrochloride. Feminization of men's breasts, haloperidol. Feminization of men's breasts, carbamazepine. Blurred vision. Gu Ran remembered that the director cannot make people learn to bark like dogs, but to keep it from others, using some special drugs is not a problem. Su Qing, Chen Ku smiled, if you keep talking, Gu Ran won't dare to eat or drink water in the house anymore. Su Qing's gaze glanced at Gu Ran and said, I still have a way to prove that I am mentally ill. If you die, I won't break the law. I will continue to live in Jinghai, and my mother will allow me to go out and have fun at will. I didn't listen to advice at all, but instead continued to threaten. Sister Qing, don't joke, I know you're not that kind of person. Gu Ran is a hero and will never suffer immediate losses. There is a future ahead, and you will be my legitimate lineage in the future. Su Qing's heart-stirring face showed appreciation. Obey me. Is it okay for you to steal the medicine from the facility? Let's discuss learning to bark like a dog. This is more feasible and safer. Chen Ku laughed as she listened, feeling that both of them could probably awaken their spiritual world. 3 people left the office building and entered the residential area. All patients gathered in the lobby, with slogans written on the walls. Show the courage to confide. Yuki Ono, a psychiatrist and pioneer of cognitive action therapy in Japan, occasionally, group therapy is held here. But this concentration is not. 6 patients are playing cards. The doctor is here. The tug-of-war old man's face was flustered, as if he had seen a police officer. Afraid of nothing. The stinky writer was not afraid at all. Take another picture. As the real estate auntie of the banker dealt a card, the fantasy writer immediately cursed, grass. His cards exploded. Gu Ran glanced and saw that the 6 of them were playing blackjack, which was exactly 21 o'clock. Use 52 cards except for the big and small kings, with the goal of keeping the total number of points in your hand no more than 21 and maximizing it. The real estate aunt directly took the gamble of the stinky writer. 3 melon seeds. Chen Ku looked at Lu Xiaoting. It was Lu Xiaoting's turn to speak about whether or not to play cards. She was completely focused on thinking, like Qing Xin in The Three-Body Problem, deciding whether to activate the gravitational wave launcher. Gu Ran said to the fantasy writer, "Why do you always use foul language? Am I a local writer? Can I be considered a local writer without using foul language?" This caused a significant mental impact on the 2 new doctors, with a power comparable to that of a Pokémon with a power of up to 120. Apologize to local writers all over the world, damn it. Gu Ran couldn't help but say. The handsome young doctor's words were equivalent to, "Look at me," instantly attracting the attention of all female doctors and nurses. The stinky writer took out his phone and said, "Don't you believe it yet, read it yourself. Look at this pussy, familiar, famous, right? Look at what he wrote, fuck this old pussy. If you look at this damn thing again, the character will inevitably end up verbally raping someone else's mother. Forget about these people, but at least you apologize to some local writers." The fantasy writer didn't even want to talk to him, but suddenly became enthusiastic and said, "Little brother, do you have melon seeds?" "No." "Then you use beauty to trick some of them into coming over. Look, those nurses have it in their hands." The fantasy writer pointed to the nearby nurses sunbathing. Several female nurses were hesitating whether to give the melon seeds in their hands to Gu Ran. "Young man, come here, auntie, give it to you." The real estate auntie took Gu Ran's hand, touched his hand, and gave him a handful of melon seeds. Gu Ran. Su Qing, Chen Ku, and the female nurses laughed straight. "Sit down and play together." Lu Xiaoting, who had decided not to play cards, regained her composure and asked Gu Ran to sit down. "Ah Ku, and Dr. Su, you all come too." She divided the few chips into 2 parts. "Okay," Su Qing sat down with her long legs, "Auntie, remember to play my cards next time. If there are melon seeds, deal the cards," said the real estate aunt with a businesslike expression. Chen Ku and Gu Ran also sat down. "Brother, give me 2, just 2. The stinky writer pleaded, "I promise to give you 4 in the future." "Dr. Gu, don't believe him, he owes us hundreds of pills," said a cute little nurse. "It's not that I won't pay you back. If I say I win, I'll pay you back. Isn't it that I didn't win?" The fantasy writer blushed loudly, like Kong Yiji who had been humiliated. He whispered to Gu Ran again, "Handsome guy, just 2 seeds. If not, just 1, okay. Next time I'll buy you a box of cha-cha melon seeds." The game was not over yet, and Gu Ran was bored waiting. He asked him, "Is gambling addiction so strong? Can we just come back next time we have melon seeds? The next bet won't necessarily be melon seeds, what if it's chocolate?" "I won't eat chocolate," said the fantasy writer. "Will the bet still change?" "Change it, the bets are all decided by drawing lots after the game is over, otherwise everyone will have a box of melon seeds." "What's the point?" Gu Ran nodded, it was really boring. Handsome guy, handsome guy, handsome guy, the fantasy writer called out softly. Gu Ran smiled and gave him 5 pills. The fantasy writer smiled happily and glanced at Gu Ran's work card, saying, "Gu Ran, I remember you now. I will write you into the next book." "No need. Gu Ran doesn't want to be a character in a novel that verbally rapes someone else's mother." In the Zhuan 24 years of Duke Xiang, it is said, "The Supreme Emperor has established virtue, followed by meritorious service, followed by words. Although they will not be abandoned for a long time, this is called immortality. I thank you and write about you, making you immortal. If you really want to thank me, just don't mention me in the book," Gu Ran said. "Deal." Su Qing lightly tapped the table with her slender fingers. "The previous round has ended, and the real estate auntie is sitting on the farm and taking everything." The fantasy writer immediately sat down, thankless for anything, no matter how important gambling is. "Bet," said the real estate lady who had eaten another bunch of melon seeds. Su Qing pressed 2, Chen Ku pressed 1, and Lu Xiaoting pressed 2, 1 pill of Zhao Wenjie, an expert in the family, a tug-of-war old man, quick discharge. Another patient on the 3rd floor. 1 pill, the stinky writer hesitated for a moment, pressed a grain, prepared to slowly lose and play for a while longer. Gu Ran glanced at his own chips and pressed 5. "Xiaoran is very confident in herself," said the real estate auntie with a smile as she dealt the cards with skill similar to that of a rabbit girl and a Dutch official. Gu Ran smiled and said, "People call him the gambling doctor of Liangcheng." "Don't embarrass the doctor," Su Qing scolded. After playing a few cards, Su Qing was stunned and willingly changed her mind. "Dr. Gu, you are a gambling doctor." Gu Ran won the mountain-like melon seeds, and the fantasy writer quickly knelt down and shouted, "Master. If you win, you can't leave." The real estate aunt was very unwilling. Continue. Gu Ran allocated a batch of melon seeds to the real estate aunt. "This is the 57 seeds you lent me before." The real estate aunt stared at those 57 melon seeds. "This is a good passage," the fantasy writer suddenly said, with a pensive expression on his face. It turned out that he had a bit of a literary temperament. Su Qing supported her head with her left hand and played with melon seeds with her right hand, her gaze slightly smiling as she fell on Gu Ran. Her elegant appearance made the melon seeds in her hand seem like real chips. Gu Ran's upper body was a little further away from her, feeling as if her eyes were looking at her promising son, such a terrifying and eerie woman. "Come on, bet." The real estate auntie rolled up her sleeves and swung a hoe like a peasant woman, using a card trick to hit everyone's heads one by one, causing them to lose their heads and bleed. As the cards were playing, the old man Ba Hai suddenly shouted out, frightening the nurse to think he was sick. "Police! The police are here. Run quickly." The fantasy writer roared, "Are you sick? We play cards seriously and don't break the law. We're afraid of being a police officer. The police are really here. There are 2 police officers on the front desk with an apple face, as well as a man wearing everyday clothes but with a criminal-like demeanor. Even real police and fantasy writers are not afraid." He stood up and pointed to the police, saying, "You want to catch me? I'm mentally ill, believe it or not, I'll spank you. This is good, shall we?" A nurse named Li Hui brought a notebook and pen, and the fantasy writer wrote with great enthusiasm, muttering. "A note came to the courtyard today, and I saw that he was probably here to clean up the underworld. I decided to fuck him." After some thought, I chose the toilet paper I stole and wiped my buttocks with yesterday as my weapon. Standing on the porch, I saw the note and it was indeed powerful. Damn it, it was 1.9 meters, but I was not afraid. I took out the paper and shouted at him, "You old pussy, dare to come and clean up my underworld, I can't kill you." The note even wanted to fight back. The doctor had suffered a loss while holding things and knew my strength. He quickly shouted, "Police comrade, he is mentally ill and likes to play with shit." As soon as the note heard of my reputation, it stood up. The horse was afraid and turned around to run away. I was pleased to have driven away the evil forces and gave the invincible weapon to the doctor. I followed him and found that the quack threw away the paper. Damn it, I remember. I'll come and deal with you when I have a new weapon. After two police comrades saw that he was truly mentally ill, they didn't argue with him. Su Qing whispered to both sides, "Come and live. Left and right protectors." Gu Ran, Chen Ku immediately became energized. 3 people stood up. When Gu Ran stood up, he casually put the winning melon seeds in his white coat pocket and came to gamble next time. The cute nurse with an apple face said, "Dr. Su, 2 police officers have sent a patient to determine if he has a mental illness. The director has instructed your team to take responsibility." Su Qing looked at the 2 police officers. The police officer had 1 man and 1 woman, and the male police officer was a bit stunned by Su Qing. He slowed down the female police officer and saluted halfway. "Hello," Su Qing nodded. "Hello," the female police officer introduced herself. "We are police officers from Yongguang Police Station in Chunhai District. We are bringing a suspect over this time. The suspect claims to have a mental illness and hopes that Jinghai can help with the examination." Su Qing looked at the suspect and lightly lifted her chin, asking him, "What's wrong?" The suspect answered honestly, "Voyeurism." "What kind of illness?" The fantasy writer, holding a pen and notebook, approached like a journalist to interview. Su Qing glanced at Nurse Li Hui. Nurse Li Hui snatched away the notebook and said, "Confiscate it." "Ah." The fantasy writer, like a pouting fish hook, chased after Li Hui. Su Qing, with both hands in her pockets and a calm posture, said calmly, "Voyeurism is a psychological and mental illness. Let me tell you. I have searched on Baidu," the suspect immediately said. Su Qing said, "The treatment is also very simple, and cognitive behavioral therapy or aversion therapy can be used. I have a request, and I hope the police comrades can cooperate." "Cooperate?" The female police officer was frowning at the suspect's true mental illness. Patients with vaginal speculum, because they can derive pleasure from it, are generally not actively treated. I hope the police will punish them severely and make them determined to cooperate with us and receive psychological treatment. What? The suspect was foolish. What did he say he was mentally ill for? Don't you just want to avoid being locked up? When I move into Jinghai, as a mental patient, aren't the nurses, female patients, and female doctors here as being locked up actually one of the treatment methods? I'm joking, Su Qing smiled brightly. Gu Ran knew that the devil had come. Sure enough, Su Qing continued to say. Voyeurism is a mental illness, but it cannot be proven as a mental illness. It is simply a psychological disorder that can be punished by law. Additionally, he claims to be mentally ill and wants to avoid punishment, which should exacerbate his crime. Of course. The policewoman laughed. Su Qing said to the patient again, I'm saying this all for your own good. I want you to suffer more, make up your mind to treat your illness, reform yourself well, maybe you can cure your illness without a doctor, and save some expenses. You. The suspect angrily punched. Gu Ran was quick-witted and grabbed the suspect's wrist, gently twisting it. Ah, ah, ah. The suspect let out a series of screams and slowly crouched down in excruciating pain. You're not honest. The male police officer was furious and used his knee to press down on the suspect like a pig, locking him directly. "Dr. Comrade, thank you." The policewoman was frightened and sweated. "It's a small matter," Gu Ran smiled. "When I was at school, I often had a battle of wits and courage with classmates who played the role of patients. I got used to it, and at that time we liked to have sudden illnesses and attack our classmates. Everyone. The policewoman glanced at Gu Ran more and said, "Huh. So handsome." Private diary. On August 2nd, sunny, gambling in the hospital. The first patient in life is voyeurism, it's really interesting. Doctor's diary. Received a patient with voyeurism, not considered a mental illness, at most it can only be said to be a psychological disorder. Ordinary people who are seriously troubled by this disease can go to a psychological clinic in advance to avoid going to prison in the future. Discovering that gambling can bring patients closer together. I have a slight understanding of gambling skills, and due to the professional habits of a psychologist, I am better at observing the emotions of others than the average person. Gambling may also become one of my therapies, and I can smoothly consult patients during the process of playing cards. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Injured by Beauty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Injured by Beauty. Su Qing signed and claimed that the suspect with voyeurism was taken away. The bill will be sent to the police station by the accounting department. After this pervert comes out, if the disease hasn't cured yet, it's up to you, Su Qing said to Gu Ran. You have experience in this area. Chen Ku looked at Gu Ran in surprise. Gu Ran warned, with my legs that have been hunting patients for many years, if I chase them out now, I can still catch up with the police. I advise you to speak with caution. Su Qing smiled and took out her phone. Her slender fingers rose and fell, quickly typing text. Accompanied by a noticeable click to send action, Gu Ran's phone rang. He took it out, facial recognition passed, and the message content was displayed. Qing. I should be a little more cautious. Did I tell you on the spot that you were staring at my butt, so that everyone wouldn't think I had no evidence? Gu Ran put away his phone, his face unchanged. Leader, don't worry, leave this person to me and I will definitely cure him, he promised. Chen Ku gave Su Qing a thumbs up, thought for a moment, and then handed her thumb to Gu Ran. Go. Gu Ran became angry with embarrassment and made a gesture of, don't join the fun here, towards Chen Ku. Chen Ku found it funny. Su Qing also smiled and said, as a psychotherapist, I have always believed in the power of human self-growth. Dr. Gu, you have once again proven how correct my viewpoint is. That's enough for you. Su Qing gave him face and turned to the nurses, explaining, after the ventilation is over, organize the patients to undergo phototherapy. Yes. The nurses nodded. Su Qing followed with 2 new doctors, and 6 patients were taken to a special room by the nurse. There was a light box in the room, and the patients needed to sit in front of the light box for more than 30 minutes. You don't need a light box, you can also use bright morning light. Phototherapy has been effective in treating depression, seasonal emotional disorders, and postpartum depression. When doing nothing but basking in the sun, the wounds accumulated in the past years, layer after layer of silt that envelopes the soul, seem to have been melted. Getting up early, exercising in the morning, and sunbathing for half an hour can prevent and treat mild depression, and sometimes the effect is even better than medication. After the phototherapy was completed, Gu Ran and Chen Ku, led by Su Qing, conducted detailed inquiries about each patient. How did you feel on this day, when did you feel uncomfortable, and when did you feel relaxed? Chatting with mental patients is a meticulous and patient job. Most of the time, patients in residential areas are no different from normal people, but occasionally they may suddenly develop illnesses. When it's light, you can still reply with, oh, or remain silent. In severe cases, one may experience emotional breakdown, crying recklessly like a child, or falling into a strong sense of self-doubt. Emotional willpower is even heavier than that of a drunken person, making it difficult for others to move. There were no unexpected situations among the patients on this day. The three of them came out of the housing area and it was time to go straight to dinner. Walking on the road, Chen Ku suddenly stopped and gazed at the distant sky. The sun is gone, but the sunset is still there. The brilliant glow dyed the sky red, like strands of graceful and beautiful ribbons. Chen Ku took out her phone to take a photo, while Su Qing and Gu Ran stood behind her. Time was quiet. Upon arriving at the cafeteria and just sitting down, Chen Ku received a call from her boyfriend and had to go out to talk. "I'm here to check the post," Su Qing said. "Why can't it be longing?" Gu Ran said. "Bet on tonight's night snack." "You lost. When you're on duty at night, you order donut takeout, free. Did you lose?" "I'll buy it." "Are there also 3? Free. Today I'll let you know what gambling doctors are." When Chen Ku returned, Su Qing asked her, "Is your boyfriend's phone number?" "Yeah," Chen Ku nodded and picked up her chopsticks to eat in small bites. "Is this phone number for missing someone or checking their job?" Gu Ran asked. Chen Ku was puzzled. Based on feelings, Su Qing said, "Do you think you miss more, or do you lean more towards checking posts?" Chen Ku smiled and looked at the two curiously. "What's wrong?" "You go ahead," Su Qing said. "Well," Chen Ku gently bit his chopsticks into his mouth, "he said he missed me, and I also feel that he misses me very much, but Cha Gang's meaning is also different, halfway." Gu Ran and Su Qing looked at each other. "What should we do?" Gu Ran asked. Su Qing said to Chen Ku, "Choose one out of 3, miss, check your job, miss, and check your job again." After spending a day together, Chen Ku, who was already of the same age, no longer had the fear of her leader toward Su Qing. She said playfully, "I choose to miss and check my job." "Are you sure?" Su Qing said again. Chen Ku hesitated a bit and instinctively looked at Gu Ran. Gu Ran sat opposite the two, facing Chen Ku's left hand and popping a finger out of the shadow of the plate. "1, miss, think carefully, miss a little more," Chen Ku replied in a tone of serious reflection. "Confirm. Confirm." "Ah," Su Qing let out her first lament since we met. "Can we say what's going on now?" Chen Ku asked jokingly. Feeling proud, Gu Ran lightly told her about the donut incident and even reached out his fist to punch Chen Ku. This is the first tacit cooperation between the same group of doctors. Chen Ku also smiled and took out her small fist. Compared to the hands of a man named Gu Ran, her hands are really small. Even when clenched into a fist, they give a soft feeling. After touching his fist, the warm and gentle touch came, and Gu Ran felt that he had been reckless. After all, Chen Ku has a boyfriend, how can he have physical contact with her? He could see that Chen Ku also felt a bit awkward after realizing it. Su Qing's dissatisfaction with the punches between the two was probably even greater than that of Chen Ku's boyfriend. While eating, she stared at them with her black and white eyes. "I'm going to poison a donut," she muttered, "one impotence, one menopause." Chen Ku finally felt Gu Ran's previous fear. "Don't do this, you can't even say it. It's so scary, team leader. The probability of developing depression after menopause will decrease." Before the probability dropped, I was already depressed due to menopause at the age of 20. Gu Ran had not noticed before that Chen Ku, who had always appeared light and familiar, also had such a teasing side. However, being able to enter the Jinghai Psychological Sanatorium and being valued by Zhuang Jing naturally has the potential to awaken the spiritual world. To awaken the spiritual world, one will never be a dull person. This does not affect stability in work, but stability in work does not hinder personal happiness. Chen Ku may even hum dig in the small garden, what kind of seeds to plant and what kind of flowers to bloom while taking a shower. Why is there a bit of bitterness? The three of them had eaten and were on duty again. When on duty, the office was particularly quiet, as if soaking in seawater, and the air seemed to be asleep, peaceful and steady. At a certain moment, Gu Ran suddenly turned around and startled Su Qing, who was holding up her phone to tidy up her bangs. "What are you doing? You don't know how to knock on the door when you enter the leader's office." Su Qing glared at him with her dissatisfied eyes. "Donut." Gu Ran looked forward to it. "You're so fat." Su Qing turned off the camera and clicked on the delivery app, "Choose for yourself." She handed the phone to Gu Ran, and Gu Ran handed it to Chen Ku, who also had an expectant expression, saying, "You can choose first." Chen Ku took the phone. Su Qing said, "Don't be polite, ache. Just buy what you like and don't care about the price. Although donuts are not expensive, even if the price difference is only a few yuan, there may be concerns when others treat them." "Su Qing, do you have any recommendations?" Chen Ku asked while selecting. "Fresh milk and heart shells are good, but they are all the same," said Su Qing. "Then I'll order this." Chen Ku carefully handed her phone to Gu Ran. Gu Ran played with it like his own phone, and the various styles of donuts in the store were as exquisite and gorgeous as a flower shop for a man like him. Click on the shopping cart and take a look at the fresh milk Xiaoxin Bei. Is this a donut? It's like burning a gong, heretical. I eat, healing little star. Healing little star, added to the shopping cart. I can eat 3 of them alone with fresh milk, Su Qing said with a contemptuous expression of his lack of taste, adding 1 to fresh milk Xiaoxin Bei in his shopping cart. But she didn't place the order immediately and tossed around on her phone for a while. When the takeout arrived, Gu Ran went to pick it up and brought 2 boxes, each containing 6 donuts. There are 3 of them, a group of 3 next door, and 6 for the front desk cute apple face and another nurse, so that the 2 can be separated from the good nurse. Then, the second takeout came, and Chen Ku ordered milk tea. Then came the third takeout, the fried skewers ordered by Gu Ran. "What are you doing?" Su Qing puzzled. "We're on duty, not having a picnic." 3 of them sat with each other on their backs, and the other 2 were unaware that the other person had ordered takeout. Finally, the 4th takeout came, the milk tea ordered by Su Qing. The 3 of them gathered around the pile of takeout, as if holding a mysterious ceremony. "What should I do?" Chen Ku also panicked. This was not the degree of hunger during duty, but the amount of dereliction of duty. Most importantly, it will definitely gain weight. I can only eat it. Gu Ran didn't care. "Let me think." Su Qing held her arm and pondered, "Whoever orders night snacks in the future, the other 2 are not allowed to order them. If it's a big deal, please come back next time. People who order night snacks should also not buy more. For example, this time, when I order donuts, I only order donuts and cannot order anything else." "Agree." Gu Ran and Chen Ku both nodded. Su Qing suddenly smiled. At this moment, it was night, with the window open and the cool night breeze blowing in. Her soft and shiny black hair was dancing, and Gu Ran felt that she could also be one of the therapies. "There's one more thing." "Beauty therapy, no," Su Qing smiled. "What?" Chen Ku was curious. "Tomorrow is Gu Ran's treat, but who will treat next Friday?" said Su Qing. "Did you use your foresight in the wrong place?" said the victim. "I'll treat it." Chen Ku thought Gu Ran was quite amused. "I didn't mean that," Su Qing said. "Everyone is a young and ambitious girl, and their expectations for themselves cannot be low. Let's establish a scoring system. Can you say while eating that if my fried skewers get cold, they won't taste good anymore? Gu Ran only cares about food and vegetables today." Finally, the 3 of them enjoyed the delicious food on Gu Ran's table, and the 2 of them directly moved their chairs over. "Why are you eating here?" Gu Ran was dissatisfied. "The crumbs of donuts and the sauce of fried skewers are all troublesome. Who put you in the middle?" "Everyone is closest to you," said Su Qing. "Yeah, who really put him in the middle? Gu Ran had chicken legs in his mouth and couldn't say that. Su Qing poked the lid of the cup with a straw and said, continuing with the score system I just mentioned, everyone can give themselves extra points, write down the reason for each point, settle once a week, and treat the Friday with the lowest score. Is there no supervision? Chen Cook carefully ate the heretic donut. No need to supervise. Su Qing said casually, is treating guests to meals important? What's important is that we want to improve ourselves every week through this system. For those who give themselves extra points, let them add them. It makes sense, Gu Ran agreed. Chen Cook picked up milk tea and handed it to his mouth, nodding thoughtfully. As a psychologist, I am naturally familiar with various reward systems and know how to plan my life, such as the 5% rule and so on. Gu Ran suddenly remembered something. Since we have a system, can we also include it this week? No way, Su Qing refused without hesitation. Unfortunately, Gu Ran is a staunch supporter of democracy. He asked Chen Ku, what do you think? Should we start this week? Chen Ku is drinking milk tea, but it doesn't delay her shaking her head. You. Su Qing and Chen Ku clinked their glasses with donuts, creating a perfect understanding and a perfect sense of victory. At the end of the day, the three of them were eating until they were full. For the sake of digestion, Gu Ran decided to walk back, as it was a downhill road anyway. The retro-style street lights climb down the slope, and the walls of each courtyard are covered with flowers. Occasionally, they happen to be at the edge of the street lights, creating a picturesque scenery. At 2 p.m. that night, the Jinghai Group 2 had a group chat. Chen Ku. So, have you all gone to sleep? Gu Ran. Eyes wide expression pack, Su Qing. Insomnia trio Chen Ku. Smiling with a squinted expression pack, Gu Ran. I have been hurt by milk tea and beauty, and I am so haggard. Starting from today, quit milk tea. Su Qing. Do you have any beauty? Don't deceive yourself. Gu Ran. Have you hurt me too much? I've only known each other for a day now, and I can't imagine that there are at least 5 more years left. Su Qing. It's not about confrontation, but about reconciliation. Maybe you'll fall in love with the feeling of being abused by beauty in a month. Chen Ku. Smiling with a squinted expression pack, Gu Ran. Good night. Su Qing. Good night Chen Ku. Breathing sleep emoji, the chat in the group ended, and Su Qing and Chen Ku looked at the chat records again. They couldn't help but laugh, and their mood became even more excited. The next day, August 3rd, Friday. Although they didn't have dark circles under their eyes, all three of them were mentally exhausted and went straight into the office to start drinking coffee. Gu Ran also brought a cup. After checking the room, holding a meeting, and arriving at Zhuang Jing's office, the two of them once again tried to search for the professional card in the spiritual world. Raging Paradise. Gu Ran was not very energetic, and after entering, he directly adopted the rolling search method. Just like lying on the side of the bed, staring at the flower in front of me like my phone. After reading it, I flipped myself over. His posture and demeanor seemed lazy, but his mind was undoubtedly focused, and he accidentally collided with Chen Ku. She was very tired today and also used the rolling method. As mentioned in The Great Gatsby, accidents only occur when both drivers are careless. Both of them are focused on finding flowers, and when rolling on the hillside, they naturally become careless and end up colliding. A man and a woman lay among the flowers, looking at each other. Both of them beat their hearts uncontrollably fast. At this moment, Chen Ku suddenly realized that Gu Ran's eyes were particularly beautiful. She had heard of electric eyes before, but felt it was ethereal and the fact may not even exist. But now when she looks at Gu Ran, she really feels like her whole body is electrified. Be sure to find a way to introduce it to Fei Xiaoxiao. Gu Ran was also flustered. Being so close to the girl was one reason, Chen Ke's boyfriend was the second reason, and Zhuang Jing was the third reason. He quickly tumbled out, panicked and unable to stop the car, all the way down the mountain slope. Chen Ke propped up her upper body, looked at the figure, her face filled with astonishment, and then burst out laughing. The rolling motion of Gu Ran was too loud, which caught Zhuang Jing's attention. The knight stood behind her with an elegant figure and smiled, "Sharan, now is not the time for you to roll and play on the hillside." Gu Ran stopped at the foot of the mountain, buried in the flowers. Suddenly, he knelt up and lifted a flower high, his expression so excited that it almost went crazy. "Found it. I found it. Private diary. On August 2nd, sunny, I had the best night snack of my life in the office. Private diary. On August 3rd, it was sunny, and Chen Ke's breath was about to spray on my face. It was a sin, a sin. Amitabha Buddha. Found your career card. I am a god. Doctor's diary. On August 3rd, I found my own career card, and my life dream finally went further. I swear, I will become a benevolent doctor and pass on the happiness found in the clover to every patient. Could you please vote and follow up on the new book list? Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. He self-proclaimed Jesus of the new century. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. He self-proclaimed Jesus of the new century. Chen Ke stood up in excitement. Zhuang Jing had become accustomed to it, but she also smiled sincerely. She stood on the hillside and said to Gu Ran, "Bring it to me for a look." Gu Ran started running up the mountain holding the flower, as if holding onto a firefly. The three of them gathered together, and Gu Ran carefully opened his closed hands, afraid of breaking the flowers. The flower is white, a very ordinary small flower, and in Chen Ke's eyes, there is nothing special, which proves that this profession card is not suitable for her. What did you see? Zhuang Jing asked Gu Ran softly. She couldn't see anything unusual about this flower, otherwise why let the students find it themselves? Gu Ran couldn't say for a moment what he saw specifically. He tried his best to describe, a wooden stick, a bit like a cane. Is there still a bend like a sheep's horn on top? Zhuang Jing asked. Sheep horn. Gu Ran carefully looked at the petals again. In his eyes, the petals were like illusions, sometimes petals, sometimes turned into sticks, as if they were about to dissipate at any time, which was also one of the reasons why he was so careful. Like sheep horns, also like spirals, also like mosquito coils, with very few circles, only, Gu Ran waited for the petals to turn into wooden sticks, confirmed, 2 circles. It's a crank shepherd staff, Zhuang Jing said. Occupation. Shepherd. The shepherd. The two were puzzled. In the textbooks of psychiatrists and in various online materials, some career cards have been disclosed, but career cards are unique. There are no two identical leaves, nor the same spiritual world. It is the first time that shepherd has heard of them. Is it related to Western churches? Chen Ke asked curiously. Am I going to become the Jesus of the new century? Gu Ran exclaimed with joy. Zhuang Jing smiled slightly and said, I randomly chose the name. The two of them thus learned why Zhuang Jing could have a heavenly splendor. She is Su Qing's mother. According to official sources, she is 43 years old but still as young as 30. Her skin is snow-white, her figure is plump, her hairstyle is elegant, and her temperament is charming. Standing with Su Qing, one would really be considered an older sister. People with a bad mentality, especially those who are getting older, would never have such a youthful appearance that does not match their age. The power of the soul can sometimes be slightly superior to reality, with countless examples. What's the use of that? Gu Ran asked curiously. The essence of a career card is a dream. Children will dream of using lightness skills, teenagers and girls will have spring dreams, and adults will dream of dead people. Various dreams, some of which are special, will land like seeds in a person's heart, becoming a career card. When a psychologist obtains a career card, they have this dream. The typical example used in analysis of professional cards for psychologists is the professional card, evolved from the dream of using lightness skills, which allows psychologists to use lightness skills. Ordinary people may think that they have already dreamed, what is lightness skill? Actually, it's not the case. No matter how hard one dreams, humans are still living beings in reality. Even in dreams, the heart is still bound by reality. After collecting a large amount of data, it has been proven that very few people can truly use lightness skills in their dreams. After flying out a few steps, I suddenly realize. Why can I fly? I shouldn't have flown, it's very dangerous, so I couldn't fly in my dream either. Most professional cards do not allow psychologists to experience anything beyond the average person. Even if they transform into mages and cast fireballs, they do not feel like gathering dark magic, because dreams cannot be so clear, and human instincts are stopping them. This is also an instinctive defense mechanism. Too realistic, it will lose reality. So, lightness skills are already quite rare, fun, and practical career cards. Zhuang Jing recalled the reason why she named this profession card Shepherd. She said, God is omniscient and omnipotent, able to connect all paths and desperate situations, without confusion. This scepter can guide the direction in the shadow of the mind. The psychological shadow is not a mist, but a concrete dream. Sometimes, the illness will hide in the corner of the dream, and searching for it will waste a lot of time and effort. If a shepherd can really find his way, I'm going to make a lot of money in the future, Zhuang Jing said with a smile. Should Aunt Jing continue to invest now and increase the contract from 5 years to 15 years? Gu Ran suggested. Zhuang Jing knew he wanted to repay kindness. Stability is naturally good, but if a person wants to continue growing, a little instability is better. Do you think so? Chen Ku couldn't help but say, Su Qing, the team leader, has also established a bonus system in the second group. The bonus system. Zhuang Jing expressed curiosity on her face. Gu Ran explained, give yourself extra points, settle once a week, and treat the Friday with the lowest score. It's great, Zhuang Jing said in an appreciative tone. Life is actually a game without rules, but we can improve our level by adding or subtracting points for ourselves. This sentence made the two of them ponder. I can guarantee that Su Qing definitely thought of the bonus system after hearing your words. Gu Ran held as much malice towards Su Qing as possible. Well, Zhuang Jing hugged her arms and thought for a moment, I've said too many famous quotes. Have you ever said this in front of her? Narcissism is also very similar between mother and daughter. Forget it. Zhuang Jing didn't think about it anymore. Chen Ku, keep searching. Don't worry, the longest time it takes to find a profession card in the institute is 14 days, and the world record is as long as 6 months. Well, I understand. I'll go find teacher Zhuang Jing, Chen Ku replied. Go ahead. Gu Ran also said to Chen Ku, come on. Chen Ku smiled at him and then turned towards the flowers. When there were only 2 people left, Zhuang Jing looked at Gu Ran. She smiled at the corners of her mouth, carefully scrutinized him, and then reached out to smooth out the clothes that had been wrinkled due to rolling before. A warm feeling arose naturally, flowing into Gu Ran's body like a hot spring. I cannot give you any extra preferential treatment at work, on the one hand because Chen Ku treats you equally, and on the other hand, giving you preferential treatment will actually harm you. Zhuang Jing explained. Aunt Jing, I understand. I also want to grow on my own, Gu Ran replied. You have been independent since childhood, and I can rest assured of you, but don't hold on to difficulties, especially in life, understand? I happen to have a difficult situation. Tell me about it. Didn't we say before that Su Qing implemented a bonus system, treating guests with the lowest score. Zhuang Jing smiled and gave a gentle as a signal for him to continue speaking. But this week, although there are only 2 days, I think we should also use the point system and treat guests with the lowest score, do you think? Gu Ran said. It was purely a joke that posed a difficulty. Zhuang Jing also guessed and smiled, saying, I don't know. You can ask Su Qing or 3 people to vote on the small matter in your office. Whether seeking Su Qing or voting, Gu Ran has already lost. Although it was a joke, he was a little serious inside, and if Su Qing could treat him to a meal, he would have a great appetite. Zhuang Jing also said that career card can only be used in psychological shadows and spiritual worlds. The previous training schedule was for Tong Ling and Wei Hong on Monday, Jiang Qi and Su Qing on Tuesday, and Yu and Chen Ku in the future. She paused for a moment and muttered to herself, Chen Ku has a boyfriend, doesn't she? That's right. Gu Ran replied, let me and Dr. Wei Hong work together. You want to be with Wei Hong, but Wei Hong is not willing yet. He is pursuing Tong Ling, Zhuang Jing smiled. Oh, Gu Ran suddenly realized, this is not good. A gentleman is a beautiful person. I want Chen Ku and Jiang Qi to be together, but I want you to be with Su Qing, and I'm afraid that others will say I'm biased and will give you a small stove, Zhuang Jing pondered. The key is, if it's really you two working together, I will definitely give you a small stove. Gu Ran felt that Aunt Zhuang Jing had a childlike and innocent side to her. Then I'll work with Jiang Qi, he suggested, and let Chen Ku and Su Qing come together. Because each group requires one person to be on duty, a maximum of 2 people can work together. Otherwise, if a patient falls ill and cannot find a doctor, it will be a major accident. No way, Zhuang Jing shook her head gently. Like Chen Ku, Jiang Qi also has a boyfriend. Gu Ran smiled bitterly and said, Aunt Jing, I don't think it's okay. Aren't you still there? There are 3 of them. Besides, I'm not a pornographic maniac who started with pleasure. Zhuang Jing smiled and said, you're not, they can be. Do you think women won't be attracted to you? What if they take the initiative to like you? Gu Ran deeply believed it. From childhood to adulthood, he has witnessed the lascivious side of women at any age. What should I do, he said, let me work alone. That's not acceptable. It's too deliberate, and others think you're planning to open a small stove for me and pass me the unique secret script. Zhuang Jing seems to be in a difficult situation. After thinking for a while, she made up her mind and said, all right, you and Xiaoqing should work together. If they really want to talk, let them talk. Gu Ran smiled and said, it's normal for you to start a small stove for me and Su Qing. After all, it's your daughter and half a son. Oh. Zhuang Jing pretended to be curious, in what capacity are you my son? What identity? Gu Ran hesitated for a moment before realizing it, his face blushing slightly. Come on. Zhuang Jing only said this sentence to cheer him up. Gu Ran is a bit funny and helpless. Zhuang Jing seems to have been helping him match up with someone. Let me tell you a secret, Zhuang Jing said. What? The shepherd has a second dream. Zhuang Jing's voice was soft. Gu Ran was taken aback. He thought Zhuang Jing would reveal Su Qing's secret, but it turned out to be the secret of his profession card, the shepherd. There are 2 dream career cards, he confirmed. Zhuang Jing nodded lightly, very elegant. She said, this, profession card, is very valuable. Once it is known by the outside world, there will definitely be a psychic thief squatting near my house, waiting for me to fall asleep and come to, blooming heaven, to destroy and steal. Career card, has no effect on reality and can only be used in the psychological shadows of seriously ill patients or the spiritual world of psychologists. But this does not hinder its value. Selling to a psychologist, if a psychologist can use this, professional card, they can improve their treatment level, obtain a large number of patients, and earn a lot of money. When one gains fame and is lucky enough to treat people with power and influence, it is even more remarkable. Aunt Jing, Gu Ren instinctively wanted to return the shepherd. Zhuang Jing glared at him angrily, without saying anything, and Gu Ren had to withdraw his hand. It's also a waste to leave it with me. I can't use this ID card, Zhuang Jing said. Gu Ren nodded and decided to work hard to repay Zhuang Jing's cultivation. So, what's the second dream? He instinctively lowered his voice. Take care of my flock, guard my thoughts. You can dream of a sheep eating infected parts like grass in the shadow of your mind. Even in the real world, mental illness can have an impact on the surroundings, especially for family members. Facing and taking care of a mental illness all day can lead to depression and even madness. Psychologists directly enter the psychological shadow of seriously ill patients, and the probability of being affected is naturally higher. Every surgery should be carried out with caution. After a long period of practice, psychological surgery also has several rules that need to be absolutely adhered to. 1. For the same patient, the interval between surgeries must be at least 3 days. 2. The surgical interval between different patients must be at least 1 month. 3. During the surgery, the psychologist's mental strength is exhausted, and even the same patient must rest for a week. 4. During surgery, one should not deliberately search for career cards or monsters. Spiritual pollution has always been a major concern for psychologists, but shepherds can consume this pollution, especially in the shadow of their minds, without the need to return to the real world to cultivate and improve their ability to sustain combat. The number of surgeries is still following the rules, which is for the mental health considerations of your two groups and to avoid being exposed by the outside world, Zhuang Jing said. Gu Ran has no objections. Facing mental patients, whether it's doctors or nurses, protecting oneself is the most important. Gu Ran suddenly realized, Aunt Jing, you didn't let me be with Chen Ku and Jiang Qi, not just because they have boyfriends, right? What do you think? Zhuang Jing asked with a smile. Without waiting for Gu Ran's answer, Zhuang Jing said, all right, you can chat outside. Now hurry up and familiarize yourself with your career card, and stabilize your first dream as soon as possible. Find the profession card and monster in the psychological shadow. Without the spiritual world, you cannot take them out. Bringing it out does not mean it can be used. Being able to use it is not something that can be done for a while. Dreams, ethereal and elusive, like mist, take some time to stabilize. Gu Ran pressed the flower into his eyebrows, as if a caught fish had taken off its hook, and the flower swooshed into his brain. Gu Ran stroked his forehead, feeling nothing. He began to fall asleep again. I quickly felt drowsy, confused, and yawned. Maintain a semi-asleep, semi-dreamy state. A solemn voice came in with a hint of confusion, and grasp what you see in your dream. Gu Ran followed suit. He raised his hand and grasped the crank shepherd's stick that only appeared in his dream, with a realistic touch and clear texture. Whether entering the spiritual world or realizing dreams in the spiritual world, only psychologists can achieve it. More precisely, only people who can have lucid dreams can do so. The drowsiness is unstoppable. Clap. Gu Ran lowered his head as if he had dropped his head. The crank staff, symbolizing the profession of the shepherd, disappeared suddenly, and he also entered his own second dream. Although his first dream is still in blooming heaven, he entered his own dream with the fall of his main consciousness and is no longer able to use his career card. This is also why the spiritual world is one of the foundations for opening a clinic, just like farmland is important. Zhuang Jing reached out and patted Gu Ran's shoulder. Gu Ran opened his eyes and was a bit stunned. Today is August 3rd, around 8:30 a.m. You have just obtained the professional card. Shepherd and are practicing in blooming paradise. Zhuang Jing helped him wake up. A lucid dream combined with a dream in a dream can be very serious, but it won't lead to getting lost. It can fall deep enough and for a long time, making it difficult to distinguish between reality and dreams in a short period of time. It is said that there are a few examples of going crazy. This risk can be ignored. It's not that there won't be any accidents, but there's no need to worry. Even if a person is alive, they may suddenly die from a heart attack. Nothing is absolutely safe. Gu Ran is indeed a bit dazed, but he is not dazed because he fell asleep. Aunt Jing, I just saw the crank and staff of the shepherd in a brief second-level dream. Thinking day and dreaming night, don't take it too much to heart. It's just an ordinary dream you had when you just got the shepherd and were excited. Gu Ran actually knows. In the textbook of psychology, there is a special section discussing the psychological reactions of psychologists after obtaining career cards and monsters. Dreaming of career cards and monsters is one of the most common psychological states. Remember, Zhuang Jing reminded him repeatedly, career card and monster only appear and function in the psychological shadow and spiritual world, and are invalid anywhere else. Continue. Gu Ran once again entered a dreamy state, and the crank and shepherd staff were held in his hand. Don't rush to wave, slowly stabilize the two dreams. Before he could finish speaking, the crank and scepter disappeared again. This time, Gu Ran didn't fall asleep, like putting weights on a balance. This time, he put more weights on the blooming heaven, and his mind was more inclined towards the blooming heaven, so there was no second-level dream. It's difficult, isn't it? Seeing him fail, Zhuang Jing seemed very happy with a smile on her face. Yes. The smile on Gu Ran's face was mixed with some unwillingness and eagerness to try and happiness. Next, I will teach you the special therapy of Jinghai. Gu Ran's spirit was uplifted. Special therapy can make it easier for psychologists to use career cards and control monsters. After the surgery, it is also possible to help the psychologist clear the psychological shadow. The shepherd's sheep directly gnaw on the psychological shadow during the surgery. The special therapy of Jinghai, called iceberg, is an extension of Hemingway's iceberg theory. Zhuang Jing gestured for Gu Ran to sit down while speaking. The two sat opposite each other in the flower bushes, like the 9 heavenly empress imparting the yellow emperor's scriptures. Hemingway said, the movement of an iceberg at sea is solemn and magnificent because only 1/8 of it is exposed to the water, and my iceberg therapy is no exception. The second layer of dreams is the ocean, and you are an iceberg. No matter how the ocean changes and fluctuates, you must stand still like an iceberg and gaze at the first layer of dreams. Zhuang Jing has a soft voice, clear wording, and speaks fluently. Private Diary. On August 3rd, Sunny, starting today as a shepherd, becoming the Jesus of the new century. Once again, I am the God of the new world. Ha ha ha. Note. After reading today's diary once, I doubt my mental state. I don't think I have delusions, do I? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I am the God of the new world, how could I possibly have delusions? Further note. Well, this diary can be used as a joke, but unfortunately it cannot be revealed to the second person. Doctor's diary. Who had a big dream first? I knew in my life that Luo Guanzhong should also be able to have lucid dreams. In modern times, he is likely to become a psychologist. Obtaining the career card. Shepherd, the process of mastering it has not been smooth. Come on, Gu Ran. End of this chapter.